Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas a todos amantes de YouTube y bienvenidos un día más a vuestro canal favorito de videojuegos, Univer Game Next. Y esto es... Muy buenas a todos, chicos, sí señor, seguimos aquí un servidor TulaLlevas acompañado aquí de mi amigo y compañero del canal DvD para traeros lo mejor de este E3 2016 y hoy toca conferencia, ahora toca mejor dicho conferencia de PC.
Eso es.
Efectivamente.
Que después de haber esa pedazo de conferencia de Microsoft, que ha sido una pasada, ¿no? Que ya la hablamos antes, ahora nos toca PC, ¿no? Entonces yo aquí en PC me espero cualquier cosa, ¿no? Porque todos los juegos que hayan salido, a lo mejor, que puedan salir en Sony, en Microsoft,
claro, es que hay muchos...
en Ubisoft, NEA, te puede salir en PC también, ¿no?
Claro,
como por ejemplo...
te podría salir, por ejemplo...
Voy a coger la lista, que veis que hay una lista enorme. Como No Man's Sky es uno de ellos.
No Man's Sky, seguro que hemos ganado de No Man's Sky.
Así por decir algo, ¿no?
Lawbreakers, que es el juego que hace también, otro de los juegos que hace competencia directa a Blizzard y su Overwatch, también podría estar.
Sea of the Times, ¿no? Que es otro juego que es de Xbox. Mira, voy a decir uno de así de cada. De Electronic, por ejemplo, el Battlefield 1,
Battlefield también
el
podría
Titanfall 2, ¿no?
Titanfall,
Mass Andrómeda, luego también tenemos aquí el Deus Ex, es que te pueden salir...
Es que claro, PC puede mostrar cualquier cosa que no hayan mostrado ya en conferencias anteriores, porque por ejemplo Battlefield, por ejemplo, ya hemos visto en EA y a lo mejor nos muestran algo que en EA pues no nos han enseñado.
Exactamente, Tesla, por ejemplo, que es otra de las que ya hemos visto, ¿no? Dishonored 2.
Dishonored 2, claro.
Luego también tenemos de 2K Mafia 3. El Simulator 16 es de PC, exclusivo de PC, así que ese seguramente lo mostrarán algo. Porque ese está confirmado.
El Simulator estaría interesante verle.
El Dawn of War 3, que también es de PC exclusivo, así es que hay un montón de juegos que seguramente que los mostrarán.
Y algunos de ellos seguramente para la conferencia de PC se aprovechará pues, para mostrar a lo mejor gameplays, trailers o teasers o cualquier tipo de imagen o lo que sea que otra gente no haya podido ver por otro tipo de conferencias o lo que sea, o a lo mejor para desmarcarse un poco y dentro del mismo juego, pues como decíamos a lo mejor del Battlefield 1, pues coger y mostrar algo nuevo, algo diferente.
Exactamente, así que yo creo que esto va a ser una bomba.
Sí, yo creo que esta va a ser una de las grandes sorpresas por el tema de contenido, porque la verdad es que el género de PC es muy amplio y más en este E3 teniendo a consolas como Sony, como Xbox, que comparten videojuegos. Entonces, el género que tienen, el producto para PC, pues la verdad es que es muy amplio. Yo estoy muy contento por ello, yo soy muy fanático, muy fanboy de PC.
Bueno, y de PC a lo mejor os muestran algún PC nuevo, algún software nuevo.
Algún software nuevo, a lo mejor se muestra algo del funcionamiento de la nueva tarjeta gráfica, aunque ya está a la venta, pero a lo mejor se muestra algo del rendimiento de la tarjeta gráfica, de la nueva tarjeta gráfica de Nvidia, la GeForce GTX 1080, que decían que iba a poder hacer correr a Doom a 200 frames. Impresionante, ¿eh?
Va a ser una pasada.
Va a ser un pepino, claro, pero preparemos cuartos.
Exactamente, exactamente, sí.
De momento no lo tengo. Si me lo dais, yo encantado.
Yo tampoco,
Así yo encantado. Así que nada, chicos, pues nada, pues por nuestra parte, pues despedirnos aquí hasta, como siempre, la posgrabación que hacemos nosotros.
¿Posgrabación?
Posgrabación. Dando al otro de la posgrabación.
No, creía que se te había ido a ti, ¿eh?
De la posgrabación que hacemos siempre después de ver la conferencia, pues bueno, pues para decirnos que nos ha parecido el contenido y si hemos disfrutado con ello. Así que nada, chicos, sin más, os dejamos con la conferencia de PC, que la disfrutéis.
Hasta ahora.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PC Gaming Show! My name's Day 9. I will be your host for today's show. Good morning. It's so wonderful to have you here. Hello to all of you on Twitch. I'm so glad you typed in the right URL to be here. Huge thanks again to PC Gamer and AMD for putting on the show again, huh? Good stuff. In this beautiful theater that honestly looks like a level from Diablo 3, I'm excited because it's the day before E3, which for a gamer is basically the day before Christmas. And we're going to kick it off on day 0 with 100 minutes of PC-focused content where we're going to be bringing in guests to talk about all sorts of exciting updates and exclusives that I can't wait to share with you. So without any further ado, for all of you here in the audience, for all of you at home, join me this morning and let's celebrate PC gaming. Let us begin. It's time to bring out our very first guests, who are going to be introducing the 3rd incarnation in their famous RTS series, Dawn of War. From Relic Entertainment, join me in welcoming Philip Boole and Brent Disbrow. Welcome, please join me. Hi, good to see you, Philip.
Good to see you.
Brent, hello.
Yeah, hello.
And of course, Space Marine, hello. Yes. It wouldn't be Dawn of War without a Space Marine looming behind our conversation. So, right away I got to ask. Dawn of War 1, much more base building focus. Dawn of War 2, much more squad focus. What's the direction Dawn of War 3 is going in?
Well, with Dawn of War 3, we're taking those proven mechanics, those proven gameplay styles of the epic battles of Dawn of War 1 and the elite heroes of Dawn of War 2. And we're putting them together with a whole bunch of new mechanics we're introducing that we think is going to create an entirely exciting new version of Dawn of War.
I understand we have some gameplay footage to show off right away.
We do. For the very first time, we're getting to show gameplay footage from Dawn of War 3. I am so excited to finally be able to share this with all of you, everyone watching at home. It's going to be awesome.
Now, keep in mind, this is still in development, so we shouldn't rush to judgment immediately, but let's go ahead and totally do that with this first look at Dawn of War 3 gameplay.
I'm on my way, but it's just me.
Don't be reckless. Wait for backup.
There's no time.
They'll kill you.
They can try. fire!
Philip, there was a lot going on in there. Walk me through how the pieces of the battle fit together.
Sure. Well, we saw a lot of things there. I should say we had a little bit of fun with the camera, as you can tell.
I assume that's not the player flying around in the middle of the game.
So we showed off a whole bunch of things in those few minutes. Planet Acheron, which is one of our new settings, a planet of ice and fire at the same time. Gabriel Angelos, the chapter master of the Blood Ravens, one of our elite heroes and the returning story hero for Dawn of War. Lady Solaria, our Imperial Knight, that giant robot, which is the biggest and best unit we've ever done. The Space Marines as a whole with their drop pod mechanic, which we call Death from Above. You saw them in action. And then just a hint of that great space laser.
Yeah, okay, I was going to ask, because you used Death from Above not in reference to the huge space laser. Tell me about the space laser.
So the space laser is their super ability, orbital bombardment. It's sort of the end game ability for the Space Marines, where you get to drop this giant finger of God laser from the sky, and you actually can control it like a squad. So you can actually move it around the field. It gets bigger as it does more damage, but it slows down, so there's a bit of counterplay there as the enemy can get out of the way.
Right.
But it just feels awesome.
Now, Brent, tell me a little bit about what it's like to design a campaign in the Warhammer universe.
It's great. You know, the Warhammer universe is very rich, and you know what we're doing with Dawn of War 3's campaign is we're telling the epic story that fans, players expect, and we're telling it from the viewpoint of 3 special heroes that are representing each faction. And it's a tale that kind of interweaves between their perspectives, allowing players to kind of experience the armies as they go through the game.
And so was that footage from the single-player campaign?
That's from an excerpt. It's excerpted from our E3 mission.
Right.
But that E3 mission is part of a bigger mission. So when we release the game, what you'll see is that E3 mission, that cool footage, in the context of a larger mission.
So cool. And I understand that there's even some more footage coming up down the line?
Yeah, we'll be releasing full footage of that E3 mission on Twitch and YouTube on June 24th.
Too easy, just in time for my birthday.
Well, happy
birthday. Don't forget, right. Now, guys, thank you so much for being our very first guest to come out on the stage. Thank you, Space Marine, with your beautiful sword. Philip Bull and Brent Disbro from Relic Entertainment.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now, our next video piece is from a development studio you might not have heard of, Clay Entertainment, but you've almost certainly heard of their games. Yeah, woo, that's what I'm talking about, audience participation. They made the games Mark of the Ninja and Don't Starve. Let's take a look at their upcoming title, Oxygen Not Included. Given how much I enjoy dying in Don't Starve, I can't wait to play Oxygen Not Included. Now, our next guests are absolute sensation on Twitch TV, where they make a game filled with dinosaurs. Let's bring out the creators of Ark Survival Evolved. It's Jesse and Forrest Rapsack. Welcome.
Hey, Sean.
Good to see you, Jesse. Good to see you, Forrest.
Good to see you.
Come join me on the stage. I mean, right away, I have to ask what it's been like to have such a rabid community and so many people just creating content around your game.
It's insane. When we put out the mod tools last year, something PC gaming is huge, passionate about. We've had a few mod contests already. We've gotten really amazing stuff from the creators. We've hired a few of them because their mods were so good. You know, so we hope to do more of this, making more changes to the mod kit and everything, and it's been really amazing to see what's being made every day.
Yeah, and I understand you have some new content you want to show with us today, a new biome.
We are pumped.
A new damn dinosaur.
That's right.
Oh, lovely. Walk me through what we're seeing here, Jesse.
So this is the redwood biome. It's a place that's unlike any other on the Ark. There's giant ancient trees that can't be harvested, which affords players the ability to build treetop bases and have a new verticality to the gameplay. There's new resources that can only be found in the redwood biome, and as you can see, it's just like a gorgeous looking place. Grappling hooks are very useful in this biome, and we're really excited to get this thing out so players can have that new diversity on the island.
I mean, it's kind of incredible, like the rich depth in the background, just sort of seeing all the sort of looming danger there, which is really a core piece of Ark's gameplay.
That's exactly correct.
All right, and here's the dinosaur. Jesse, stop what you're saying. Tell me about the dinosaur.
This is the Titanosaurus. This guy's been a long time coming. The biggest dinosaur on the island by far. There's only a few of them. They're kind of indestructible. You can build giant bases on them. Their attacks are devastating, and they can't be tamed in a traditional way. They're immune to narcotics. They require a special takedown method related to kind of KOing them in the head with some bigger artillery. So.
Yeah, and you can build a fortress on the dinosaur.
Yeah, science tells us that's possible.
Of course. Ark based on real science. Now, modding, obviously a huge part of just Ark's culture. I mean, talk to me a little bit about this mod.
This is actually Primitive Plus. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Jesse, go ahead.
Yeah, Primitive Plus is a mod that we've created, or Cedric created, one of our community guys originally that came in-house, and he's been working on this for a while. It's been available to PC gamers for quite some time, but we're making it an official mod now. This will be later in July. We'll be putting it on our official servers, and this will allow people to easily get into this mod, which is really good for role-playing. It's living off the land. It's got a whole lot of new resources. It allows you to play the game without the high technology tier, and it really opens up a lot of new gameplay mechanics.
Seems really centered around just creating an in-game community.
That's right, yeah. And
even like storefronts and ways for people to trade.
Yep, storefronts, ways for people to trade things. I mean, it's really awesome. And this is just an example of one of those mods that was created. There's so many other things available right now through our mod. You can play Ark on the Moon with Ark Moon Survival. There's new competitive game modes like Tribe Wars. There's new maps all over the place that have been opening up the world for people to play Ark.
And another of the mods that you brought in, and my understanding is that these are brought in-house now to be
Some
part
of them
of
are,
the official launch as well.
Right.
That you get to play any animal in the game.
So this started off actually as our, this started off as our April Fool's joke, and we decided to make it a real mod, so we are going to bring this in your future, and people can play as ants, you can play as frogs, you can play as a wolf. It's pretty neat.
That's right. One of our partner developers, Instinct Games, is actually developing this out of Egypt. And they have been working on this for a little while, and it's so exciting because you can play as the creatures of Ark, go through their life cycles from babies to adults. You know, we started Ark and we added the poop button, and in this mod you have the mate button. Because as
these are important buttons.
They are buttons
for the content release.
Yeah. You know, it's great button remapping. All the hardware carriers are really going crazy over this. But no, the goal is to create a pack, right? To create a pack of creatures and play with that pack of creatures, make new babies, raise them, level them up. You can play kind of asynchronously against the other species on the island. Of course, there's all sorts of people choosing different types of dinosaurs. Yep. And then
predator mode.
Yep.
Predator vision.
Every dinosaur has a unique kind of, or creature has a unique vision. And of course, we've got humans on the island as well.
Yeah, Forrest, what are they doing there?
Well, you know, they're throwing poop. That's what they do. That's what monkeys do.
Wow.
I think the monkeys are going to be very popular.
Critical buttons upcoming in the next release.
Like playing as the monkeys.
So once again, you know, this is going to be an official mod. Instinct Games, our partner team out of Egypt, developing this. It'll be coming later this year as an official mod on official servers.
That's so awesome. And Forrest, of course, I have to ask about your involvement with streaming, sharing content for the community. What's that experience been like?
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, our community is just absolutely outstanding. They get so involved and are so, honestly, so creative. I mean, we really try to incorporate ideas that the community comes up with when we find things that we think are like, we should have thought of that, you know? So.
Well, you're going to give me the gift of being able to role play as an ant and leave scents everywhere.
Totally. And I'm going to be the frog, though, so you better watch out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse and Forrest Rapsack from Ark Survival Evolved. Guys, thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Now, I normally like to do a little spiel to lead into each thing, to just frame it. But for this one, I don't have to. All I'm going to do is tell you the title. Up next, we have Giant Cop.
You should try it, man. It's very free. Coming to Micro Beach used to be a great natural experience. Do some naked sunbathing, naked barbecue, naked hula hoop, naked Sudoku. Now it's so restricted and boring. It all started going downhill when they brought in that giant...
People have no decency today. I couldn't even go to the beach without seeing peckers and hoo-has everywhere. But the beach is a much nicer place now. I can take my kitties on a leisurely stroll and not have to worry about all that indecency.
That giant cop is great! Like a super detective! My prized petunia plant beauty was stolen! I was heartbroken! I gave Giant Cop a picture of my beauty, and that dirty thief was quickly dealt with!
Micro City's not the same anymore, man. Like, you can't...
I no longer fear walking home now the Giant Cop has eyes everywhere. The streets feel much safer.
Our police force is top-notch, and our city has never been better because of it. I am happy to have the Giant Cop here to serve us. Giant Cop is the greatest.
Innovations in VR. Told you I didn't need to tell you anything. Now our next title is the sequel to a game that at first I struggled with, but then fell in love with the combat. That game was Mount and Blade. Coming up next, we have a little intro video to the sequel, Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. Let's take a look. Join me in welcoming to the stage from Tale World's community manager, Frank Elliott. Frank, it's so good to see you again.
Hi,
hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, Frank, I just want you to start off by talking a little bit about what is Mount and Blade for those who are unfamiliar.
Okay, to summarize very, very quickly, Mount and Blade is an action RPG strategy simulation sandbox, very like amalgam of all those genres. And what you are is essentially, you're like just a regular person in the world. You can become a lord, you can rule your own faction, you fight in the battles alongside your troops when you're commanding them as well. There's politics, there's trade. It's very much a feudal simulation game, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I brought up the combat earlier. I mean, a lot of games have you hit the button to do the punch.
Nice.
But I mean, in Mount & Blade, it's much more physical, much more involved. And I mean, here, this is the big news of Mount & Blade 2, the Siege. Walk me through what we're seeing here.
Okay, well, this is our Siege gameplay, and really this is kind of one of the areas of the game where players wanted to see most improvement from us. So what we did is we worked a lot, we added in loads of different mechanics, so we've got things like destruction now, you've got ballistae, mangonels, and obviously as the player you can just push your soldier aside, grab one, fire right at that battlement, blast a piece of it off, and you're essentially very, very involved in the fight. We have like multiple lanes of attack now as well, and you get to deploy, choose how you approach each castle.
And right now, how many players are there on each side, or excuse me, humans on each side in this fight?
Well, yeah, essentially this is one of our single-player sieges, and we have like 350 guys on our side, and the defenders have a bit less, on 150. So it's about 500 total, all operating individually, acting independently, using their own attacks and blocks. But we can push that a little bit further in the final game, we think.
And how does a siege evolve over time? What's the beginning, middle, and end of a siege?
Well, essentially, you're doing a siege to take over some land, right? Exploit the natural resources and sort of gain more money because you sort of expanded your faction. So you spend some time on the campaign map bombarding, doing some damage to the castle, and then you get into the fight and have this huge, dramatic, climactic battle against the enemy.
I mean, I understand that so much of the inspiration from the game is just historical research. How does that factor into the siege?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's a huge part of the way we design the game. We actually look at history, we look at what worked, and also why it works. So you see these murder holes up here. I mean, like getting into a castle is supposed to be a real, like, massive pain, right? It's a really hard thing to do. And so once you're trying to smash down that gate, you've got the defenders from above, like throwing rocks, throwing jars of oil all over you, and you're having a really hard time fighting in this very historically themed castle.
I mean, the scope of it is just incredible. And I mean, I know with all the intricate systems, not just the combat, but the political, the economic system, that modding is a really big part of Mount & Blade as well.
Absolutely. I mean, modding has been part of Mount & Blade right from the very start. I mean, from the very beta of the first game, we had modders coming in, and it's really sort of helped to fuel our community growth and helped to actually kind of fuel development in a way as well. We've taken a lot of ideas from the modding scene. So in Bannerlord, we tried to give back to the community because we love them so much, and what we're going to do is we're going to give them all of the tools which we use for development, and also we're going to allow them to combine mods. So someone might make a mod which changes something about diplomacy, someone might add a skill, and then another person adds maybe, like, you know, a new weapon or an armor, and players can actually grab all of those mods, combine them into one,
awesome.
And play them in the game, yeah.
Well, for any of you who have not played Mount & Blade, I personally strongly recommend it. Frank, thanks so much for coming out and talking about Mount & Blade 2. Now, our next video piece is from the maker of Lords of the Fallen, creating another game inspired by Dark Souls, but in this realm, it is in a sci-fi setting. Let's take a look at The Surge.
Changing the world is easy. Governments, corporations, they've always done it. Until this is all that's left. Slowly roasting under the solar rays. Forged from imperfection, steeled by technology. We're the cogs in their machine. And yet we struggle on. We are human, so we fight. But are we fighting for our future or theirs?
A game I will definitely play. Now, our next guest was here last year talking about Project Blue Streak. And now we get the chance to know that it is called Lawbreakers. Up next, we have a video of a brand new map to play on in the game. It's called Promenade.
Welcome to Santa Monica Island in the rebuilt California Keys. Tourists used to love this place until the good, the bad, and the straight-up ugly arrived. Now we've got organized crime and mercenaries taking on cops and vigilantes, all floating and fighting in our damn streets. When you jump into 0G, How are you gonna win the war? Will you fly like a rocket? Or swing through the sky?
Step into the shadow! You have picked up the battery.
Will you be on the right side of the blade or the wrong side of a gun? Lawbreakers.
Oh, join me in welcoming the CEO of Boss Key Productions, Cliff Bleszinski. Hey, Cliff.
How's it going, man?
Cliff, nice shoes. I didn't see those earlier.
Those are my fresh kicks, man.
Those are great.
I'm at the age where I just want them to be comfortable. That's all I really care about. And I got to cast Ice-T again. How awesome is that? This ain't Utopia.
Well, outside of shoes, I want to jump straight into talking about your game.
Absolutely.
Right away, the movement, the motion, the verticality sticks out. Talk to me about that design element, because it harkens back to like Quake and Unreal days.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, we've talked about those kinds of games, and I think they're doing a new Quake, which looks pretty cool as well. But it's really important to note that what we're doing is evolving this kind of game for kind of a new generation that expects kind of abilities and characters that have different kind of health and different movement styles.
Right.
And so the core of these types of games, these first-person shooters, it's not just the shooting, it's the movement. It's how you flow through the environment. It's whether or not the player actually has momentum. Then when you add in low gravity and the player zips into low gravity and jumps out, and they can actually bunny hop a little bit. So you start to get a little bit of that kind of like, strafe jumping, tribes skiing little vibe going on in there. And then when you add in zero-G and low gravity and blind firing behind you, it gets really, really interesting.
And I mean, this is the new map Promenade, I understand.
Which thankfully, the thing is here at E3, we're finally able to show off a new map, a new arena, because we've been showing off Grandview for so long, which is our kind of repurposed Grand Canyon. And now this is kind of my re-envisioning of what Santa Monica and Los Angeles could be in the near future and whatnot after an earthquake and humanity manages to rebuild Los Angeles properly without all the darn cars.
It's a very ambitious plan for Los Angeles.
Dude, it's really my thinly veiled middle finger to this town, because I love this town, but I hate it. It's like you're always in cars, you're always in traffic, so it's like if we could have like the big dig in LA and put all the cars underground self-driving, then we could have like lovely Frank Gehry architecture everywhere. And the Santa Monica Pier is reimagined with it's not just a Ferris wheel, but it's like omnidirectional now, along with a big zero-G pocket in the middle.
And I mean, in terms of just the gameplay, what has it been like to try to balance all the different motion routes that players can go through when there's so much freedom?
It's completely unbalanced right now. And that's why we're actually going to be doing the public alpha. And so when we do these public alphas, we actually say, come help break this game with us. We've had some streamers who are already playing the game giving us feedback on the health stations or feedback on the player speed and movement. Right. And we're having these boiling debates inside the studio, and I tell everyone, get used to it, because this is part of the process of 2016 and beyond and making a living product with your fans.
Yeah. I have to ask right away, there's so many different kinds of shooters coming out with Overwatch, with Battleborn, with Paladins. I mean, how do you see Lawbreakers fitting into the mix with all these types of shooters coming out?
I had this epiphany the other day, and I didn't tweet it in spite of my trash talking on Twitter. The fact that, if Overwatch is Street Fighter, we're going to be Mortal Kombat. Overwatch feels like it's kind of skewed, towards a kind of an anime fan type vibe, right? And it's a fantastic game. My wife is really good at Mercy, by the way. Don't go up against her. She gets to play the game every time. But we're like kind of the Western version of that actually has, a little bit of cursing, a little bit of gore. It's not gratuitous, but, we're going back to the kind of the roots of a shooter where you can actually do a star fall down and boom, cause people to explode.
Well, awesome. I mean, you talked about alpha plans. What is the more specific timeline?
So basically what we're doing, we have our kind of alpha timeline coming out here in a second here, where we're doing a public alpha, and it's actually on the 18th of June, this weekend, where if you go to PCGamer.com, you can enter your name and possibly get in. There's only a limited amount of tickets that you can get in for that, and preloading will start on the 16th, so you're not sitting there on the 18th eating up all your bandwidth downloading the darn game. So basically what we're building up to is early access for everyone. I'm not revealing that date yet in regards to when the game's paid and whatnot, but it's free. There's no non-disclosure on the 18th here. You can stream the game. You can put it on YouTube. You can tweet me, tweet Lawbreakers. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you hate. Call us assholes. I don't really care. Just give us your feedback. That's what we're going for.
Cliff,
they will.
Cliff, I love it, and I guarantee you will get that feedback. And I'm excited to play the game.
I'm
going to tweet at you. I want to get access. Once again, pcgamer.com/law. I believe that there were several thousand keys available, but they're all gone. Guaranteed.
Good problem to have.
Of course. So, ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Blazinski from Lawbreakers. Thank you so much for coming out, Cliff. It was a pleasure. Now, we've brought some developers on to talk about their upcoming games and their upcoming content, but another very important group in the industry is the players themselves creating new strategies to use against each other. And that content, that spectacle, has exploded into the world of esports, a world very personal and near and dear to me. So to talk about it, let's look at this video clip from Yahoo Esports.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Renee for Yahoo Esports. We wanted to take a moment during this year's PC gaming show to celebrate esports.
Before esports had all this money in it, it was a very grassroots situation.
But it wasn't really until the recent years, as we saw the advent of online streaming and some of these bigger esports titles, that things have really gotten huge.
I've been involved with Street Fighter since the early 90s when it came out in arcades. We didn't have a lot of tournaments like we do now. So 25 years later, there's just this massive growth, and it's amazing to see where the game has gone and where it could potentially go.
This is a really exciting time for Dota 2. At the International 5, EG pulled off the perfectly coordinated Echo Slam in order to take home the big prize pool.
Ready for the dog! In from Universe! It's a disaster!
I remember way back in 2011 watching the League of Legends Season 1 finals hit 100,000 viewers concurrently on stream, and that was when I knew League of Legends was here to stay.
My first stadium event was an IEM, and I remember when I was watching Counter-Strike there, that every single time someone hit like a really sick flick shot with an op, the whole audience like reacted like someone had scored a touchdown.
From Fallen in CSGO, Faker in League of Legends, and Fear in Dota 2, it is incredible to see everyday gamers rise to superstardom.
Evo Moment 37 is probably the most defining moment in fighting games and possibly esports history. It's a moment that drew so much attention and brought players into the scene. You can talk to so many different players who will point to that defining moment as a time they got into fighting games.
I remember the feeling when I was at BlizzCon in 2015 and the Heroes of the Storm audience was all the way to the very back of the giant convention center. They even had to take out a wall to allow for more people to watch. It was insane.
The introduction of live streaming and Twitch has exploded viewership of esports in a way I don't think anyone really thought possible.
The prize pools are getting bigger, the viewership numbers are getting bigger, and there's more monetary sponsors, and I'm so excited to see where it goes.
The future of esports is happening right now. It's growing every day.
With the introduction of more and more games like Overwatch or Hearthstone, esports can only get bigger as time goes on. It can only gain more fans. It can only become more exciting.
If you don't follow esports, now's as good a time to start as any League of Legends or Dota 2 or Counter-Strike watchers, any StarCraft players out there in the audience today. Esports fans, there we go. Start now, just go to Twitch, it's all over the place. Now, in addition to players being a critical piece of the industry, the technologists are as well, constantly creating new innovations for us to play with. So, joining me on the stage today is the lead sponsor of the PC Gaming Show, here to talk about some new goodies. Join me in welcoming from AMD, the CEO, Lisa Su. Lisa,
hello,
hey.
Sean. How are you,
Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I'm doing great. I'm just hosting a show. What about you?
I'm just hanging in there, developing some new technology.
That makes sense. I mean, tell me right away about Polaris.
You know what? We are extremely excited about Polaris. You know, Polaris has been in the making for a number of months, and we're getting ready to launch it. And Polaris is all about getting the best gaming experiences to as many gamers as possible. And you know, most gamers have a budget, and it's usually around $100 to $300. That's about 84% of the market. And for us, we're trying to get extremely enthusiast-class performance at those types of price points so that all gamers can enjoy that kind of performance.
And I know it's not just the hardware side, but also the software side.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've doubled down on software, you know, game-ready drivers, working on the new APIs like DX12 and Vulkan. And we have a little bit of a treat to show you what we can do with Polaris and the guys at id on the new game Doom.
Let's go ahead and take a look at Doom running on Polaris.
Hi, I'm Marty, and this is Robert. We're back here at id working on a number of updates for Doom, and specifically Doom running on Vulkan. gamers can look forward to a buttery smooth experience in Doom on Polaris, supporting a wide range of hardware and gamer budgets.
We believe the experience on AMD will be hard to beat across all hardware.
Want to play Doom on your laptop on the train home? Polaris plus Vulkan is going to make that possible. Bottom line is, you're not going to need a $700 video card to enjoy Doom at fantastic frame rates.
Lisa, the box has made a return. Last year we had a box. This year we got a box.
The box is bigger this year.
What's in the box?
Look, hey, we couldn't come to the PC gaming show without showing off some new technology. So let's see what we got here. We are showing off for the very first time the entire Polaris lineup, our 3 cards. So let me take you through them. First, let's start with the Radeon RX 480. This is our newest card for premium VR. And this is disruptive. This gets premium VR at $199 and above price points, and we love this card, going on sale starting June 29th. And then we have 2 other cards here, which are pretty exciting as well. We have the RX 470 and the RX 460. The 470 is really focused on excellent performance per watt, so it's 2.8x over the previous generation. And you get full HD experiences, 1080p running 60 frames per second. Gorgeous card. We'll have many, many different versions of this from our add-in board partners. And then we have the 460, which is really focused on esports. So I heard about all those esports fans in the audience. This guy is going to be the best card in the industry. Less than 75 watts, cool, fast. I think you're going to love these cards. So we're really excited about our new technology here.
Thank you, Lisa. And you know, it's not just, you know, you're talking to me about VR yesterday, and it's not just that these support existing technologies. You introduced to me the word a VR backpack, which I was completely confused by yesterday. Talk to me a little bit about that today.
So it's one of the cool things. I mean, you know, we're super excited about VR. VR has the opportunity to put incredible number of new applications there. And it's not just about the hardware, but it's about how we work with our OEMs. So my friend Renee here, part of the AMD Red team, is showing off a new Alienware reference design using the RX 480, and you can see the entire PC is in that backpack with the graphics card, and you're able to run, you know, full high-definition VR experiences with this reference design. So is that cool or what?
I mean, so this is the sort of thing that you could like take to an open field and be able to just wander around as opposed to just being in a room doing what I do, like punching the wall when I'm playing a VR game.
That's absolutely right. Who wants to be sitting down? You know, you want to be able to do everything that you want to do with the VR experience. And this is really just the beginning with what we can do with the Radeon RX series.
Now, in terms of working with developers, you mentioned Crow Team earlier. Tell me a little bit about your work with Crow Team.
Yeah, so look, I think VR is about the entire ecosystem, you know, the graphics cards, the OEMs, but it's also about the software. We have been working on new software called Liquid VR, which makes it easier for people to deliver VR experiences. You know, Crow Team is ultra famous for all their work with Serious Sam, and what we've been trying to do is help them develop VR content actually using our multiple GPU features. You know, so what I'd like to say is, you know, we each have 2 eyes. Don't you think we should have 2 GPUs?
That is perfectly logical.
So let's see some of what Crow Team is doing.
Yeah,
it's really exciting.
Serious Sam in VR.
Looks to me like things just got seriously real. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Get ready to get serious.
I still laugh.
We love Serious Sam, so.
Now, outside of GPUs, tell me about the CPU side of things on AMD.
All right, that's a little bit of a secret. But look, we love CPUs. We think, you know, they really go in a pair, and we've been doing quite a bit of development on CPUs. We have a new development called Zen. Zen is going first into enthusiast class desktop processors for gamers, and we've really optimized around, high performance, 8 cores, 16 threads, really exciting stuff. Sean, I wanted to bring the lab here, but I needed the engineers to do some work. So
that would have been an odd show to have the lab on stage, and I'm glad that you brought the video to allow us to take a look at the new Summit Ridge line.
Exciting update from the AMD Bring Up Labs. We've been testing out the Zen core, and we've been doing our integration level tests, our feature enablement, and we have Summit Ridge running Doom.
Lisa, thank you so much for coming out today. It's been a pleasure to see all the new goodies.
we are extremely excited about what we can do this year. And Sean, thank you. And all PC gamers, AMD is for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Su from AMD. And again, thanks for putting on this show again this year. It's a lot of fun. Now, let's talk about video games. Our upcoming title is from the makers of Life is Strange and Remember Me, the studio Don't Nod. Let's take some first exclusive look at some gameplay footage of Vampire.
You know I should feel something. So why don't I? What does it mean? That I'm dead too?
Steady, boys. We got one of them here. I've got...
Awfully different from Life is Strange. Eh? Now our next guests were here last year where they were talking about the updates to their Gore engine technology, and here they're excited to talk about upcoming content. It's for Killing Floor 2. Let's welcome Tripwire Interactive's John Gibson.
John, great to see you again.
It is a pleasure. John, please join me here, and I'm going to ask you the easiest question ever. What's coming up with Killing Floor 2?
What's coming up? Okay, so Killing Floor 2, it's been out in early access for a little while. It came out last year, and we put out 4 major content packs for it. We have a really exciting one coming up called Bullseye, and it's got more weapons, more ways to kill the monsters, more way to kill players as the monsters. It's really exciting.
You get to play as a Zed.
You get to play as the Zeds.
Num, 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 num. Now, in terms of that experience of having it in early access, what has that been like to have so many people getting to play for so long and giving you the feedback leading up to this content patch?
Oh, it's been really great. We've learned so much. You know, we've developed an analytic system to measure, you know, how, you know, what people like, what people don't like, because it's really hard when you have like 1 million people like all shouting things at you at the same time to tell what you really need to change. But in this upcoming update, we've added a lot of their feedback into the game and really retuned things based on that feedback. So it's been a great feedback loop.
That's so cool. And you brought today some footage of Bullseye. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. John, you're going to have to walk me through a little bit of that action. Tell me what we just saw.
Okay, so you saw the new Sharpshooter perk. It's all about killing the monsters from the long range. You saw the really cool new weapon, the Horzine Tech Railgun. It's this beast railgun that you can knock those giant monsters right on their butts. New characters. We've got some community maps that we're taking official.
Yeah, no, walk me through that process. How did that go from just something the community made to actually being part of the game proper?
So we had this community mapping contest called the Grindhouse Mapping Contest. And so now we're taking those best maps, we're helping them polish them up, and we're shipping them as part of the game.
That's so cool.
So people in the community are actually getting their content in the full game.
And I mean, we've been using the term full game. Killing Floor 2 has been in early access for a long time. What's coming up next down the line? When does it leave early access?
Well, we're planning on it leaving early access this fall. So we can officially announce that this fall you're going to be able to get your hands on the full version of the game. And also one thing really exciting, actually I'd like to do right now. I'm sorry, I wouldn't normally pull my phone out in the middle of an interview, but you know, all that cool stuff that you just saw, hold on, it's live right now.
Oh, that's
you can play the update right now.
Did you actually do anything on your phone, or is that just a prop phone?
That's just a sound. But somebody on the other side of the planet pushed a button that released the update.
Okay, no, that makes a lot more sense.
That was their cue.
Yeah, because I don't know if you could hear this in the audience, but when he hit it, it actually began to play a sound. And I was like, that's a lot of effort. You could have just said it, right?
I could have.
Well, John, I understand there's something extra you wanted to talk about today.
Yes, there is. Just real quick, for Killing Floor 2, for those of you that haven't got to try it, we're starting a free weekend on Steam, starting Thursday, running to Monday. So if you want to play it, you haven't got a chance, you want to fight as the monsters, because we just added that, go do that. We do have one more thing.
Well, John, what's the one more thing?
Well, actually, if you don't mind, I'll take over hosting the show for a minute. We have from Oculus Development, Anna Sweet to help us announce.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Anna Sweet from Oculus. Anna, welcome. Come join us. Anna, what are you doing here?
Well, I've known the team at Tripwire for a long time, so I'm really excited to be here today to help them announce a new game called Killing Floor Incursion. If you think the Killing Floor universe is intense, wait until you check it out in VR with Oculus Touch. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I understand this is not a translation of the current Killing Floor 2. Instead, it is an entirely new experience in VR. Let's take a look at Killing Floor in VR. John, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this game. That looks so scary, man.
It's scary.
And I mean, like, completely outside of just the horror element to it. I mean, that must have been a real interesting new space trying to figure out how to translate some of the gunplay experiences from Killing Floor into virtual reality.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that's so exciting about working on virtual reality. You know, when we got the touch controllers, we're like, this is really exciting, but how are we going to use it? We're really sailing in uncharted waters for the first time in years as game developers. So we're like, how do you model recoil in VR? How do you move? How do you, and solving all of those problems, it's been challenging, but also very exciting.
What's one of the most interesting things that you think, like especially the recoil one? How does that work?
The recoil, it's a challenge because when somebody's shooting, you don't want the gun pointing up here, but their hand feels like it's pointing in that direction. So you have to be really subtle with the recoil, but you really want them to feel powerful. So that's been one of the real challenges.
And I'm curious, Anna, you work with a lot of different people and different developers in VR. How do these sort of lessons translate to other titles?
It's really exciting. This is sort of a complete ability to rewrite every genre and remake all the rules, and we just see developers doing incredible things. It wasn't that long ago we didn't even know if first-person shooters would work in virtual reality, and now you have a team like Tripwire who's just redefining the genre. So it's a great time for gaming.
Well, Anna, I understand that there is an additional title that you wanted to talk about in the VR experience.
That's true. So I'm not sure if you call it a first-person shooter or maybe more of a ballet, but the team at Superhot has been hard at work creating a new experience that really drops gamers into a Matrix-like encounter. So we're really excited to announce that Superhot will be coming as well for Oculus Touch, and I think we have a new trailer.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, John Gibson from Tripwire Interactive and Anna Sweet from Oculus. Thank you so much for coming out to talk to us about first-person VR. And now it's time to take a look at that Superhot VR trailer. Still like this. This is my favorite part of that whole trailer. Now the next video piece coming up is from one of my favorite developers of all time, Obsidian, that made Fallout New Vegas, made Pillars of Eternity, and their upcoming RPG asks the question, what if evil won? Let's take a look at Tyranny.
For centuries, Kairos the Overlord has conquered the known world. Dissent has been quelled. And those who once boasted of their right to rule are forced to kneel. In Kairos' empire, the execution of justice is paramount. The lawless will be broken, made to feed the flames of war. Those found deserving of authority may rise, picked from the ashes, to be the enforcers, spearheads of the cause, to judge the accused and strike down those foolish enough to resist. As the final conquest draws near, you can institute the law from above or use the banner to institute your own. The destiny of nations is yours to decide.
Oh, my wallet. I will continue to buy everything you make, Obsidian. Thank you. Now, our next game that's coming up is a futuristic horror game made by the creators of Layers of Fear. Let's take a look at Observer.
What the?
An interesting teaser trailer, and here to unpack it for us is Rafal Basai from Blooper Team. Rafal, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Good to see you. Nice shirt. Hey,
oh, thank you.
Look at that. Nice branding.
Yeah, you're looking good as well.
This is a nice floral tie. Yeah. I recently learned the word paisley. Cool, huh? Now, right away, I just want to ask, what sort of game is Observer?
Actually, it will be a little bit impolite, but I will need to answer your question with a different question.
Oh.
So, what would you do if your fears got hacked and used against you?
I would have a lot of spiders used against me.
Yeah, so imagine that this one sentence actually sets the premise for the whole game, but let me delve a little bit deeper into what Observer is. So, it's a hidden horror game in which you play as Dan, who is a member of a special police unit that actually is called Observers, and their job is to hack other people's minds and memories. So you can imagine that you will witness a lot of, twisted visions along the way in the game.
I mean, the setting is really evocative with all the digitization on the walls. Talk to me about the cyberpunk setting.
Yeah, so we are setting the game in a cyberpunk universe, but then again, it's not something you know from, American movies. We are setting the game in an Eastern European setting, and we are having, this fight between the high-tech environment, the holograms covering, the dusty and destroyed, devastated, buildings and stuff like that.
Now, I have to ask, there's a lot of different spreads in the horror genre of some a little more story-focused, some a little more pure horror jump-scare focused. Where does Observer lie in terms of gameplay?
Yeah, so it will be a full-fledged horror experience, but as with Layers of Fear, we are focusing on, deep narrative and, environmental storytelling. But then again, you play as a detective and an observer, so you will need to use your technology to actually scan the environment and, hack other people's minds. So again, what would you do if your fears got hacked and used against you?
It would be upsetting. Let's take a look at some first ever exclusive gameplay footage of Observer.
Shh. Keep your voice down. He'll hear you.
Who will?
He's coming. I can hear him out there. He won't take me. I won't let him take me.
I'm going to have to toughen up so I can play all the scary games that are being introduced this year. It looks so good. Our next guest is going to be taking over hosting for me for just a little bit. I'm very excited to hear about his game, Drop Zone. Please join me in welcoming from Sparky Pants, Jason Coleman. Take it away, Jason.
Thank you.
We're excited to announce an all-new RTS-style game called Drop Zone. At Sparky Pants, we're veterans of RTS development, but more importantly, we are huge RTS fans. And we believe great competitive RTSs start with 1v1. In Drop Zone, each player controls 3 pilots with abilities they've configured before the match using our gear system. Drop Zone combines the strategy of a classic RTS with the fast-paced tactical combat of a MOBA, all in an intense 15 minutes.
And I'm back. Jason nailed it. And there are never too many RTSs. Now, our next guests were here last year. They are the makers of the game Arma 3, that is an absolute sensation on the modding scene and a brilliant game in its own right. They're here today to talk about their upcoming expansion that is the culmination of years of work, Arma 3 Apex. Joining me will be Jay Crow from Bohemia Interactive. Jay. Hey, Jay.
Mr. 9, sure.
Good to see. Oh, Mr. 9. Ooh, I like that title.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. Maybe just let me say also thank you for being here. At Bohemia, we are big advocates of the PC, of PC gaming, so it's a real pleasure to celebrate PC gaming and PC game developers. So yeah, on behalf of the Arma 3 team back in the Czech Republic, yeah, it's great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Thank you, Jay. So, I mean, right away, tell me a little bit about the big content that's coming up for you.
Yeah, well, last year we were here, like you said, we showed off Tanoa, 100 square kilometers of South Pacific jungly archipelago terrain. The kind of place where you can walk in an hour for one direction and always be finding something new. So what we're here to discuss today is, I guess, how a player is going to explore this terrain. What weapons and vehicles that they're going to have. We also have a little teaser trailer of the 4-player co-op campaign as well. And maybe also a little teaser at the end as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, the amount of content that you guys have been working on over the last 3 years is tremendous. I mean, a lot of games have a 3-year development cycle and then they release, but Arma 3 has been continuing development on Arma 3 for 3 years now.
Yeah, that's right. We call it the road to Apex, and it's been a long road. And the kind of vehicles and weapons that we've got lined up for the expansion itself, 13 new weapons, and we kind of see those as a mix of old meets new. So we've got some old favorites coming back, some AKs, some RPGs, and these are in the hands of our French-speaking criminal faction, Syndicate. And this is sort of counterbalanced by more cutting-edge modern weaponry in the hands of our special forces. And the vehicles, which we've been taking the most time over, we've been focusing on like new classes of vehicle, new ways for our players to explore these huge terrains. We have these monstrous VTOL aircraft that can carry other vehicles inside them. They're so big. Then we have these little sort of nimble, light, fun to play with light strike vehicles. So you can sort of get your squad, pile in, and just jet around the terrain on those.
I mean, the thing that's always amazing about the Arma games is that not only is this a ton of content for the game proper, but modding is obviously a huge part of Arma 3. How did you design the content with modding in mind?
Well, I think starting with the terrain maybe, alone, all of the mods and game modes that you know and that you love, we can expect these to be sort of coming back with Apex and getting this fresh new setting, this jungly island terrain. And the weapons and vehicles sort of complement that. They help players maybe create also new kinds of scenarios, because we have the structure and the composition of the terrains, these islands, these jungles. It's something that we haven't seen before. And aside from that, I think the the part of the world that we're exploring, the South Pacific, it's such a beautiful part of the world. Yeah. And it has kind of this also quite difficult or sometimes sad history. And we know that our modders are they're the kind of gamers that will go out there and make new scenarios based on that and inspired by that. And we're really looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
And I'm excited now to start off this world exclusive, the very first look at Arma 3 Apex.
Delta 1-0. Be advised that my call sign complete. Now moving to objective London. Out. Roger. On charge. PID all packed. Go when ready. Almost, you're up. On it. Flash. Go, go!
Jay, you snuck a release date in on us.
Yeah, we might have seen the first announcement of our release date. That's the 11th of July, or July 11th, if we're going English simplified.
I didn't even know what you said at first. I'm so glad you translated it back to American.
And aside from that, maybe you might have seen snuck in there as well was, right now the guys back in Prague staying up late watching the show, helping us out. They've just pushed the button on, hopefully, push the button on a special Apex sneak preview build. So if you've pre-ordered Apex and if you're on the development branch, right now you're downloading all of those.
Right now?
Yeah, right now you're downloading those weapons and vehicles and Tanwar itself, of course. So your ISP is going nuts and yeah, a few gigabytes coming down the pipe right now.
That's awesome. So I mean, mods could be part of the official launch date now.
Well, exactly. We have a few weeks. You can kind of get on board, help us with our, I guess, sort of beta testing before this release of July 11th. And we'll see, yeah, everything that we know and love in splendid green hell fashion.
That's awesome, Jay. Thank you so much for coming out. Jay Crow from Bohemia Interactive and Arma 3 Apex.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Now, our next title is from Bulkhead and Square Enix. It tries to answer the question, are there robots on Europa? Let's take a look at Turing Test.
The Turing Test is a first-person puzzler set on Jupiter's ice moon Europa.
We started with a common science fiction question, is there life on Europa? And we went to scientific advisors to try and get an idea of what that life would actually be. So we're telling a science fiction story, and it is really fictionalized, and we have lasers and all this kind of stuff, but it's based in an underlying reality of wanting to tell a story that could actually be true.
The original prototype was really cool because what happened when we saw people play it is they instantly understood what was happening and they understood the mechanics of the game. It's kind of a game where you pick up and you can just play it, you learn through the mechanics, and that's something that we wanted to push in terms of design. We wanted people from any background to be able to come and pick up the controller and find it a fun experience to play.
When the team showed me the Turing Test, I thought it was a great development on their last game. You feel a lot more involved in the world, you have a lot more control over the environment, and it just opens the world up to a lot more possibilities, really.
We present the player with, you know, a linear story that they can progress through. But as well as this linear story, there's also elements underneath that that will change the meaning of the story for the player as they experience it. developing the game has been about that challenge of making something functional but beautiful.
Just a beautiful video piece. Thank you so much, Bulkhead and Square Enix. Our next guest taking the stage is here to talk about how scary it is to drive across the country. From Finji, join me in welcoming Heather Penn.
Hi. So Overland is a survival strategy game where you take a road trip across a post-apocalyptic North America. Every level you visit is procedurally generated, and you have to manage your fuel, your weapons, and other supplies by making the right calls along the road. We're currently running a limited first access alpha program on itch.io, and starting right now, we have 1,000 keys available. So check that out. You can visit our site at overland-game.com. Okay, let's look at the trailer.
What a lovely game to say everything is stressful, right? Once again, that was Overland. Coming up next, we have a game with extremely high ambitions to be the next big space sim. Let's take a look at Dual Universe. To join me in talking about what we just saw, let's welcome from Nova Quark, Jean-Christophe Bailly.
Hey,
bonjour. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks.
Now, right away, I mean, there's so many elements that we're seeing in that trailer. What is Dual Universe about at its core?
Okay, so it's a sci-fi MMO, obviously. And for me, it's an old dream that I have as a gamer, and I think I'm not the only one. It's to build, this online virtual world where basically everything is possible, where you can build anything you want and become anything you want. So that's not a very new story. I mean, there have been a lot of games before saying that. So what exactly do we bring? As you see in the video, the first thing is that you can really build anything. You can build your ship, you can build your space station, you can build your house, your city, you can actually harvest minerals from the ground in the planets. Everything is editable. We've done a voxel technology to do that. The second thing, which is very important, is that all this takes place in what we call a continuous single shard universe. That means that everybody plays in the same world at the same time. There's no instances, no loading screen, no zone where you have to queue and things like that. So if you want to have a huge city with thousands of people in it, you can do that. So there's a lot of technology to do this. And yeah.
So I mean, I gotta ask, there's a whole lot of space sim type games. I mean, there's already EVE Online, there's Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky people are buzzing about. How does Dual Universe fit in with those? How does it contrast with them?
There are a lot of aspects of the gameplay we have that you will find in other games. But what we do is we put everything together into this huge world that is shared by everyone. And it changes everything. Because if you build a ship, I mean, you can, perhaps you're going to build a ship that's going to be very successful on the in-game markets. And it's going to be the ship that everybody pilots almost. So you can become famous, you can become rich, you can have your personal story. If you win a war, I mean, you can actually change the balance of power in this world. So everything has a meaning, everything is important, everything matters, and people are able to create this collective story together. And we've put a lot of emergent gameplay also in this. Yeah. So you can create political systems, you can create your economy, you can create your organizations, and a lot of things like that, so that people can really build up anything.
So, I mean, you're talking so much about player-to-player interaction. How do you keep everyone together? I mean, I assume that the universe is going to be large, as just sort of classic in a space sim. Walk me through that.
So you start, everybody starts at the same place, in the Ark ship, on the Allied planets, and then you spread from there. Based on the technology you unlock, you will go further and further. So there's no limit to the size of the universe, but there's a limit to how far you're going to explore it. That's one thing. The other thing is that we are concerned about, creating quality content, because we don't create the content, players do. So the idea is that every force we put in a game, we put also a counter force, so that we have equilibrium emerging between the players. That's
so you don't just have some weird break where the only correct thing to do in the game is do mining or something like that.
No, players are going to choose what they like and what they don't like, also through the markets in-game. Something that is nice is going to sell more, and if it sells more, then you're going to see more of them. It's that simple, like in real life, actually.
Yeah. So when is this game going to be available?
So we have a lot of work to do. So this is just a pre-alpha that we've seen. We hope to shoot an alpha, a closed alpha at the beginning of 2017. So that's the schedule. Until then, we're very fond of creating a large community of people talking with us, discussing with us the game. We really love that. We love the feedback. We already have people on the forums, Twitter, Facebook. So that's what we want to do. And we're going to launch also a community website, which I like. Cool. The idea is that you can create a character already, and you can also start to create an organization like, Pirate Guild or something, and recruit and start a role play on this website. We're going to launch that in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. I mean, having the community focus, always so important in this sort of game. And I'm really excited to see what Dual Universe brings as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Jean-Christophe Bailly from Nova Corps, thank you for talking to us about Dual Universe today. Now, coming up next is not exactly a game. It is about the tools of the trade for gamers. It's time for us to take a look at a video that celebrates the mouse and keyboard.
What makes PC gaming different? It's the mouse and keyboard.
I mean, they're really part of the reason why we even have point-and-click adventures, RTSs, action RPGs, I mean, even FPSs.
The mouse is our eyes and our aim.
It's an extension of our reflexes.
It's all about freedom and customization.
PC gamers care about what's under the hood. They care about how it all works.
You've got people who are passionate about the type of mechanical key switches they use.
My favorite key, the tilde up, hands down.
Just imagine PC gaming without a mouse and keyboard.
When I'm playing Bastion in Overwatch and raffle-stomping newbies, I need the precision that only a mouse can give me. If I had to pick one word to describe a mouse and keyboard, total control.
Speed.
Maybe just total.
Letters.
Clicking.
And this is a particularly apt segment because coming up next, we have the sequel to a console RTS called Halo Wars. Joining us from 343 Industries to talk about Halo Wars 2, it's Dan Ayub. Dan!
Hey!
Hey! Welcome! Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Come join me on this awesome, comfy chair. Now, you're making Halo Wars 2, and it's going to be on PC. Tell me about how that is just the awesomest decision you've ever made.
That could very well be the best decision I've ever made. So obviously, first Halo Wars, been a while since that. Still the best-selling console RTS of all time. But one of the big things we heard from people coming out of it, in particular PC gamers, is, well, this just feels like a natural fit for PC. Why aren't you guys doing that? So with Halo Wars 2, we wanted to make sure that we were, coming out on Win 10 as well. So the product's it's going to release on both platforms at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, on February 21st, 2017, it's going to be coming out, and we're on the floor around this week as well. So it's been a really great move for us because obviously that's just a genre that fits so naturally,
absolutely,
as we were just looking at for a mouse and keyboard interface. So it's been great.
So this is some gameplay footage from Halo Wars 2. Just walk me through what's happening.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a cut from the first mission of the game. And really what we're doing is establishing the UNSC presence on the Ark. Now, what we really wanted to do, we had a few goals with the game. What we're looking at now is, well, you're seeing right there, just great graphics and really great player feedback as well. Big focus on tracer fire, making it very clear who's shooting at you, what you're shooting at. And really, we like to call it internally an action RTS. So very quick to action and a lot of fun just blowing stuff up. So there's some spectacular explosions, some great effects. At this point, I think we're going to, there's some good boom there. We're going to start to see some flame effects pretty quickly. We just wanted to put a lot of focus on just making the game look beautiful and a huge focus on control as well. And really, how do you make an RTS for everyone, right? RTS can be a bit of a...
very daunting genre.
Absolutely, right? It can be really challenging. Always my favorite genre when I was growing up. I was a big PC RTS player. So I'm really sensitive to the fact that, a lot of my gamer friends growing up were like, oh, that's really scary. I don't know about that. So you're going to see, there's just some great effects and some great flame right there. We're going to focus a lot on very classic multiplayer modes that RTS players want and expect, but we've also got a number of brand new styles of multiplayer that we're going to be talking more about as we get closer to launch. That is going to be something that a more casual gamer or somebody who's really never played an RTS before can jump in and enjoy.
I actually do want to dig into that because you use terms like action RTS and making sure that there's stuff for the casual. That's obviously going to be tricky to balance with how many people are obsessed with the competitive RTS scene.
Yep.
What's the plan there?
So great question. The plan is really to treat them as different people, right? I mean, these are very, very different kinds of gamers. So we announced a beta today at the Microsoft conference that's going to focus on a couple of our more competitive classic style RTS modes, like your classic deathmatch mode, for example, where you and I build our respective bases, we build our armies, and we go at one another. And for me, that's going to be one of those very classic modes that your more hardcore RTS player is going to want to enjoy. We've got some other modes coming, again, that we're not talking about at this point, but that are going to be very simple, a lot quicker to get into the action, take some of the strain off of resource management and things like that, so people can just focus on building a really badass army and getting into the action.
And of course, I have to ask about the fact that you're talking about releasing on different platforms. How did you sort of deal with the control puzzle there?
Yeah, one thing definitely want people to hear is, we're not just porting console controls over to PC. Mouse and keyboard is very, very different, and we wanted to be very, very true to that. We've got a number of things we wanted to take advantage of, like groupings, for example, right? Multiple groupings on a mouse and keyboard. Just the quick nature of it, the ability to navigate the map really, really quickly, as well as a few other PC functions that, again, we're going to be talking a little more about. But yeah, so it's always for me, like, what's the best interface for the console or the PC that you're playing on, right? So we have a specific set of controls for that console controller, and we have a different set of controls for the mouse and keyboard player, so it feels a lot more, specialized.
Well, Dan, I'm really excited you came out to share Halo Wars 2 with us.
My pleasure.
Dan Ayub from 343 Industries. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
See, as I said before, you can never have too many RTSs, which is part of the reason why I'm so excited that we've gotten the chance to see so many of them come out here today. Now, coming up next, there is a game whose title I'm not allowed to say. They informed me that I needed to wait for him to say it, so in 30 seconds, we will be able to find out the title of the upcoming game. It is from the makers of Insurgency, from New World Interactive. Let's welcome Andrew Spearin.
First E3 appearance, and truly a big moment for us. It has taken perseverance, adaptation, and teamwork to find success as an indie developer in this highly competitive business. By no coincidence, these are the qualities required to win a match of Insurgency. On behalf of the entire team at New World, led by our game director and CEO, Jeremy Blum, we are proud to reveal today our second game, releasing on Steam Early Access next month. Following the trailer, visit PCGamer.com for an exclusive preview. We hope to see you on the front lines in Day of Infamy.
Radio! Someone find me a bloody radio! Bloody hell! You took the scenic route, didn't you? Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Come on, this is one section. Request immediate barrage on objective able. Over. We've got a war to win!
Day of Infamy, I can finally say it, Day of Infamy. Love those beautiful, different environments. Now coming up next to announce a new game are the makers of Chivalry Medieval Warfare. Join me in welcoming Steve Pigott. Steve, I want to ask about your upcoming new game, Mirage Arcane Warfare, where I understand you're kind of taking the sword-fighting combat from Chivalry and putting magic in there.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, Chivalry was the first game we made. It was basically medieval time sword-fighting, first-person, multiplayer. What we've done is add magic into that mix and really add the magic into the sword-fighting system. So basically in this game, you're just going to be chopping off heads with swords and blasting people apart with magic.
And I mean, the thing that you took the time to talk about a little yesterday with me is that this combat it's very much so about watching the animations of your opponent. It's very deliberate. Talk to me about how you design the combat for this sort of experience.
Yeah, for us it's really important that it has a deliberate feel to it, and that really shines through in the fact that you can block any attack. You can block any projectile, a guy charging at you, it doesn't matter, you can block it. If I hit you before you hit me, it's actually going to interrupt your attack. So people are really wary of each other, they're watching each other. It's a really tense combat situation. It kind of feels like a duel. We are going back and forth, attacking and blocking at the last second. And for us, that's really important to actually sell the deliberateness of the combat and get people to really think about what their opponent's doing before they make actions.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Dark Souls.
Yeah, we like to think of it as bringing like fighting game mechanics into a competitive multiplayer first-person shooter.
Well, we have a chance to look at an exclusive gameplay trailer for Mirage that I want to hop into right now so we can get the chance to see that multiplayer action right now. You know, one of the things that I noticed in that trailer right away is the unique art style. It seems like a mix between Arabian and Persian.
Yeah, we kind of used Persian and Arabian kind of architecture and landscapes. You got it. To inspire us. And so you'll be fighting in like beautiful white marble palaces or scattered desert ruins throughout the matches.
Yeah, I mean, how did you wind up settling on that sort of style for this type of game?
Well, it was something that we hadn't really seen done before, and also gave us a great opportunity to create contrast. So you have kind of this beautiful, pristine-looking area, and then you have this kind of really harsh desert area. And also, we just kind of wanted it to, we have kind of like really clean colors and bright colors, and we wanted it to kind of feel like a calm, you know, almost peaceful setting. And then people will go in there and just shatter that with violence.
And all the screaming and the intensity. I love seeing the blocking action there.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge thing for us is really, you know, the satisfaction, the crunch of combat is about half of the game experience that we're making here. So,
when can I play it?
It's coming out fall this year, and there's going to be a beta at the end of the summer.
Well, that was awesome. What an easy answer. Ladies and gentlemen from Torn Banner Studios, Steve Piggott. Thanks so much for coming out, Steve. Our next game coming up is absolutely darling. It gives you the opportunity to make all your own spells. Let's take a look at Mages of Mistralia.
Mages can shape magic into whatever they want. They combine runes into patterns, just like constellations in the starry sky. And in this bewildering darkness, they're the valley's only hope. So, tell me, what spells will you create?
Just charming. Love that video. Coming up next, we have a new game mode for a game that really just surprises me the entire lifetime of a game called Warframe, where they snuck in 2013 and really without making that much noise, quietly crept up to being one of the most played games on Steam right now. Let's take a look at their upcoming game mode, Warframe Lunaro.
My pupil, you have honored the tenor, scaling the bone mountains of war. You have attained mastery, paid for in blood and suffering. But even the greatest warriors need a reprieve from combat. And so it is with Lunaro, the honor sport of a lost time. Here you will grow new dimensions of skill. Focused not on violence, but on teamwork and coordination. Your prize, not war spoils, but friendship and harmony. Lunaro teams at the ready.
Well, as a huge fan of Rocket League, I kind of feel like I'm going to be a huge fan of that. Now, we're not done with upcoming announcements for Warframe. Do we have any Warframe players here right now? Yes, you're allowed to clap. We have an exclusive giveaway for all sorts of upcoming goodies in this next video. Let's go ahead and take a look. And now coming up is the final game that we will be talking about today. They're revisiting us from last year, here to talk about the very first level of Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Join me in welcoming Jean-Francois Dugas and Patrick Fortier from Eidos Montreal. Woo! Welcome.
Thanks,
Good to see you. Hey, pleasure to see you. Now, let's kick it right off. Talk to me about this first level, Dubai.
Well, Dubai, it's the first map of the game, and actually it bridges the gap between Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, in the sense that in the last game, it was all about transhumanism, what you can be and everything. And we use the Icarus myth to illustrate that idea, like if you fly with your wings, it's all the possibilities, the full potential of what you can be, but if you go too close to the sun, you can burn your wings and then eventually fall into the sea. And basically at the beginning of this game, it's really black and gold, but especially gold. And so it represents like this dream. And Jensen goes into his first mission, and there's the sunset like we see on screen right now. And Jensen dives into an old abandoned hotel under construction. And it was built by augmented people, and now what you see, it's the remaining of that. And it's basically saying that at the beginning of this game, it's the end of the Icarus myth, it's the end of the dream, and now we're going into a darker world.
I'm really excited to take a look at this gameplay footage right now. Now, just so you all know, because I know there's someone on Twitch right now who's like, hey, wait a minute, this is on PC. It's just being played with a PlayStation controller. That's why you're seeing those controls show up. So again, this is the PC footage that we're taking a look at. So Patrick, walk me through the sort of construction of this level, what it is that communicates all the different ways that you can play Deus Ex.
Gameplay-wise, one of the things that's really important for us is we're presenting a different Jensen who's much more comfortable with his augmentations. We wanted that to translate to the gameplay as well, so we're really looking for a lot of fluidity, really dynamic system. So one of the things that we're seeing there is like the new cover system. So you can actually do cover to cover forward and cover vault. You can do takedowns from cover. You can have access to the augmentations a little differently on the fly as well. So that Dubai level is actually an introduction to all that, or a refresher course for people that are a little bit more familiar with Human Revolution.
I mean, well, I feel like one of the big themes of people who are huge fans of Deus Ex is non-lethal playthroughs, just playing through in that sneaky fashion. Talk to me about some of that being incorporated here.
Well, the really fun part is that, the way that we design a lot of the augmentations, we're really putting it, we're really seeing it as tools that we're trying to empower players with, and then it's up to them how they want to use it. So even something like the stealth augmentation is something that you could use it to sneak around and really be invisible. You could use it for combat as well. If you just want to flank somebody and move to another side. A lot of the augmentations are thought that way. Like the PEPs, the gun arm is something like that as well. You can take out people non-lethally. You can do it from a corner, but you can also use it in combat. If somebody throws a grenade at you, and you could PEPs it back to them. And you could, So we're really trying to come up with ways of letting players be creative with our elements.
And I feel like in terms of the narrative, also to the ability for players to shape it with their choices. How does that factor into Mankind Divided?
Well, it's super important. We really wanted to push the choice and consequence experience. And for us, it was not only about big moments, you choose A or B, and then it takes a different course. But it's also when you interact with characters, depending on how you answer to them, like they will react differently if you see them afterwards and things like that. So we really wanted to have different layers of choice and consequence. And for example, in the Dubai level, it starts right away at the beginning when they tell you like we have to do this mission quick, and there's this sandstorm is coming and everything. And depending on how you play, you can finish the mission without the sandstorm. But if you take your time or whatever, you can end up in the sandstorm, and now the visibility is affected, but for everyone. And it changes also with the AI how they're going to react. And there's a chopper that is about to take off, and maybe it's going to delay the takeoff and things like that.
That's awesome. And now we got the chance to talk a little bit yesterday about the sort of customization settings that were core, even extending all the way into the interface. I mean, Patrick, can you talk to me a little bit about those features?
It's really important for players to be able to customize their game experience, and some of the stuff that we're doing with UI is really interesting as well. You can actually scale the UI completely if you want it to be like very, very unobtrusive, or if you want it to be more present and really use the radar properly. You can take some stuff out if you don't want to have any interaction glow and stuff, and you want the really hardcore experience. Or you can actually put it to sleep, and so you have it contextual depending on when you're using energy or weapons. Otherwise, you know, you get the clean UI. So it's really important for the whole player freedom philosophy to translate into the options, into the game experience as well.
It's been a real pleasure to see the updates for Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Jean-Francois Dugas and Patrick Fortier from Eidos Montreal, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming out.
Pleasure.
And that is our final game to announce and to talk about today. However, it is not our last segment. In the same way that Deus Ex Mankind Divided is the exciting, most recent iteration, Deus Ex, the original game, still shows up on top lists when I talk to my friends about their favorite PC games of all time too. It keeps coming up again and again. And the man that made Deus Ex has been in the industry for 2 decades, and we wanted to invite him to the stage to talk about the future of PC gaming to close us out. Please join me in welcoming a legend of the industry, Warren Spector.
Okay, before I get started, it's been 3 decades in the game business, not just 2. And I want to thank the PC Gamer folks for letting me come out here and speak to all of you folks. I wish I had something to announce. You have no idea how much I wish I had something to announce. But I don't. So what I want to talk about today is the past, present, and future of the PC as a gaming platform. So as I'm sure you all know, there was a time not so long ago when it was common to hear people opining that the PC was dead as a gaming platform. Frankly, I fell prey to that thinking myself. For much of my career from 1989 through 2004, from Ultima 6 to Deus Ex, I was a PC guy all the way. When we started working on Deus Ex in 1997, there was never a question what our target platform would be. The PC was it. But then, right after we shipped, came the request to do a PS2 version. I should have seen what was coming next. When we started working on Deus Ex Invisible War and Thief Deadly Shadows, we had new marching orders. Those games would be developed for the Xbox. The PC version was, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but the PC version was kind of an afterthought, which some of you may have noticed. When we started working on Disney Epic Mickey, there was never a question. We'd be a console game. We'd be a Wii exclusive, which, as a note, was a great decision. It was the right decision from a business standpoint. But the bottom line on all of this, publishers wanted console games, and developers like me had no choice but to go where the money was, and the money was on console. I spent several years in that world, many years, always secretly hoping that the PC would make a comeback. And here we are in 2016 with PC enthusiasm at a fever pitch. I mean, just look at what you've seen today. So what changed things? Well, social media, for one. Non-gamers discovered they could play games on Facebook. Now, some of you may not like that, but it's a fact. New gamers, a whole lot of them, came along who had never touched a console controller, never even really thought about playing a game. For more traditional game fans, most of you, I suspect, social media had an impact in other ways. Streaming services like Twitch gave players and fans new ways to experience games they love, or maybe that they'd end up loving. Thanks to Twitch, there are a few better ways to interact with fellow gamers than on the PC. But there are other reasons for the resurgence of interest in PC as a gaming platform. Perhaps most important, the PC now offers tools like Unity and Unreal and others that allow small groups of modders and indie developers to create new content for existing games or even make the game of their dreams. The PC, then, is the only truly democratic platform open to anyone with a great idea. And clearly, there are plenty of people with great ideas out there. If you need any evidence of the vitality and originality of the indie space, look no further than Braid, Kentucky Route Zero, Undertale, Rocket League, Gone Home, The Stanley Parable, The Binding of Isaac, Limbo, Spelunky, Papers, Please, Kerbal Space Program. I mean, don't starve, countless more. Go one step further, and there's Minecraft. Now, Minecraft is unmatched by any other game or platform at grabbing the attention and stealing the time of kids and adults, as well as creating a community of players and training future game creators. Now, Minecraft, as we all know, exists on many platforms now, but it exploded on the PC. In fact, you have no idea how much damage Minecraft did to the development of Disney Epic Mickey. Okay? That's a whole other story. But what good would all of those personally meaningful, artful, unique games and all those new creators mean if they couldn't reach an audience? The PC has that problem licked too. With digital distribution systems, let me try that again. With digital distribution systems like Steam and itch.io and Humble Bundle, anyone with an idea can execute against that idea and reach an audience with it. Go back 5 years and this was simply not the case. To make a game and reach an audience, I needed money, a lot of it. I needed a big team. I needed a way of reaching an audience trained to buy software in brick and mortar stores. In other words, I needed a publisher. Now there are new ways of reaching audiences, and they all took off first on PC. And by the way, now that I've dissed on publishers, I'm never going to work again. Great. I love you, publishers. So what else makes the PC special and more relevant than ever? There are whole categories of games that simply play better on PC than anywhere else. I'm talking about RTSs. You've seen several of those today. MOBAs like League of Legends. Esports, which turn PC gaming from solo or small group activities into spectator-friendly events, accessible not only online, but increasingly in mainstream media. And where better to play an MMO than on a PC? The incredible success of World of Warcraft and these other forms of gaming speaks not just to the relevance of PCs, but in some areas, the absolute dominance of the platform. Consoles are great. Don't get me wrong, I love consoles. They offer consistent controls and typically never-changing hardware specs. But, well, you never know what's coming. But those great strengths are also great weaknesses. Consoles depend on developers learning to exploit existing, mostly unchanging hardware more effectively each year. By contrast, PCs genuinely grow in capability over time. And you know how developers are. We want to utilize every erg of power available. We know that gamers can upgrade their machines to keep pace with our games. Games that get more and more impressive, and one would hope better, all the time. PCs offer gamers and developers ever-increasing power no other platform can match. Developers live for that. And gamers are the big winners when power and creativity come together. Players benefit from the PC's open-endedness in other ways as well. You just heard a little bit about this actually a minute ago. PC gamers have unparalleled capability to customize everything they want in their game, from graphical fidelity to personalized control schemes. The PC puts gamers in charge of their experience in ways that are unique in the world of gaming. The development of games has always begun on PCs. We develop on PCs. But beyond that, we're certainly not blind as developers to the resurrection of the PC as a player-facing platform, with plenty of us focusing on exclusive titles out already or on the way, or at least multi-platform titles that offer rich PC experiences along with console counterparts. Games like Star Citizen, Bard's Tale 4, Civilization 6, Might and Magic 7, Overwatch, Unreal Tournament, XCOM 2, new entries in the Shadowrun and Warhammer series, add-ons to World of Warcraft. And if I can be so bold, I've just joined a company called Other Side Entertainment, and the company I work for today is putting a great deal of effort into ensuring that PC versions of Underworld Ascendant and System Shock 3 offer terrific PC gameplay. So the PC is alive and well in 2016. In fact, you could argue that things have never looked better. The future, and I mean the near future, is one of 4K displays, motion and haptic controllers, virtual reality, augmented reality, and frankly, given the ingenuity of hardware developers and game developers, things we can't even imagine today. And where's it all going to happen first? On the PC, that's where. We live in a golden age, an age where anyone can make a game, where there's a game for everyone, where price points range from freemium to premium, and where there's a distribution method to meet just about anyone's needs. And right at the heart of these things is the good old PC. No, the great new PC, right where it belongs, at the center of an ever-growing gaming ecosystem. So thanks for having me here. That's all I have to say. And here's to the great PC games yet to come.
Thank you so much, Warren Spector. That is the end of the official main PC gaming show. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you on Twitch for tuning in. Huge thanks to all of our partners that made this possible: Bohemia, Tripwire, Gameforge, Frontier, Razer, and of course AMD and PC Gamer for putting this all together. This isn't the end of the content. The post-game show is coming up right after this. So if you'd like to stay in the theater or if you'd like to stay online, we would love to have you. Without any further ado, go forth and enjoy E3, and we hope you make a friend and play a lot of games. Cheers!
Might have left the stage, but the PC Gaming Show, for those of you who are still in the audience, welcome, is still going strong. We'll be here for more in-depth interviews with some of our guests from the main show, as well as more reveals and trailers from a few new guests, so you'll definitely want to stick around. We're first going to be joined by the developer of Hitman, IO Interactive. Please welcome Torben Ellert to the stage. Hey, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So, Hitman just this morning announced their newest episode. You guys announced the bonus episode, I believe you're calling it. Can you tell me a little bit about what we can expect from that?
Absolutely. So, basically, we just had episode 3. This was Marrakesh. This was the mission, A Gilded Cage. So at this point, right, the story is set up for season 1. The major players are introduced. Providence has been introduced. The whole kind of, the pieces are moving, so to speak. But in a season format, this is usually where you do something a little bit different. And for us, the decision was that we would do a double feature, right? We'd do a summer bonus episode that had 2 missions in it that revisited some of the locations that people absolutely loved from the season so far, Sapienza and Marrakesh, but in completely new ways.
And so you're here to talk also a little bit about Marrakesh is one of the places that's changing. What can we expect that's different in the new Marrakesh?
Well, I mean, the very simplest answer that I can give is that it's a completely different time of day. Marrakesh is interesting because it actually takes place sometime before the main story in A Gilded Cage. It's like backstory. It allows players to experience, well, how did this massive coup come to happen and sort of interfere with some of the workings that brought it to that point.
And we're seeing on the screen right now, it looks like it's in chaos almost. Like,
Yes,
what's
absolutely.
changed?
What we're seeing on the screen there is actually Sapienza. So there are two locations, Sapienza and Marrakesh, and Sapienza is the one we're seeing there. So basically, Sapienza has been transformed to a film set. Troubled actor-director Dino Bosco is filming his sci-fi superhero epic, The Icon. And this is basically the setup for the key third act conflict in that movie where the aliens are invading Sapienza, as they obviously would, right? Now, Bosco is an interesting one because he's an old school director, right? He does his own stunts. He loves practical effects. He loves pyrotechnics. You can imagine that's a dangerous cocktail when Agent 47 is on set as well.
Right, right. That seems almost like too easy of a setup at that point.
Yes.
But so how does these changes, these times of day changes, but does that mean that people who are going into it are basically can't expect anything similar?
Exactly.
It's going to be different guard patterns, different everything.
Entirely different, right? So one of the great things about the live format that we have for our game is the fact that we can actually change our levels from like the smallest level by like changing whether or not a specific guy will spot a specific disguise. And we use that a lot in our escalation mode contracts, these little challenge modes that come out once a week. We also do it for our elusive targets. We just had the Cardinal, and we took the church area and completely re-rigged that, set it up as like a super high security area full of bodyguards, as you would expect if a high profile target was visiting a place like that. And the icon that we're seeing here is way at the other end of that, which is where we tear out everything that players know and expect and replace it with an entirely new mission. So this means new achievements, it means new challenges, it means new signature kills, even fun new items to unlock. But that's actually only part of what it means. It also means that this is technically a new location. So players can also expect to have new escalations and create their own contracts on top of this level. And also they can expect to have elusive targets pop up in the film set version of Sapienza as well.
And speaking of that, you guys have brought a trailer along kind of detailing the very first, or the elusive target that's coming up with this expansion,
Yes,
is that correct?
Well, so elusive targets come out at semi-predictable intervals. The whole idea is that they're elusive, right? And we're releasing one tomorrow that will run for the duration of E3. We'll actually be live streaming it ourselves a little bit later, but what we've seen is players, they love to go in and pick apart the level to work out, well, where is this guy and how are they going to take him out? Because in an elusive target, basically you are Hitman, because you have one shot. If you die, you can't try again. If you miss, well, you didn't get to Paris in time to take him out. And finally, the way you take the target out, it sticks. You can't try again. So if it wasn't Silent Assassin, if it was a bit messy because you had to take out a few bystanders, well, that's a stamp of shame that will follow you forever, right?
Well, let's take a look at the next elusive target.
Good afternoon, 47. Your target is multi-platinum media sensation Jonathan Smythe. He is the subject of an international manhunt following his involvement in a multiple homicide 3 years ago. He fled prosecution but continues to release records and maintains an extensive financial empire that has only been bolstered by the controversy. We have learned that he will be hosting a private party somewhere in the palace grounds. This is the first opportunity to engage in over 3 years, so we must act immediately. Locating this party and bypassing security to reach the target will be your primary challenge. The clock is ticking, 47. Good luck.
We'll now be joined by Brian Hines, game director at Obsidian of Tyranny. How you doing, Brian?
Good. How you doing today?
Good. We saw a great new trailer for Tyranny during the main show. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about the game. We know by now that the concept overall of Tyranny is evil has won, evil has conquered the land. But what's the actual role you're going to take? That was hinted at a little bit in the trailer. What's the role that you as a player take within Tyranny?
So you begin the game as someone who's actually part of the conquering army who allowed the evil overlord to win and dominate the world. So you begin the game with something we call a fate binder. You're someone who has a position to bring your brand of justice to the people you encounter in this world. So as you adventure through the game, your decisions matter. People respond to you and your position of authority. They have to obey your decisions and the laws that you proclaim.
So this seems like an interesting way to make it not as much, RPGs always have those choices, but this is a very nice way to make it not just good choice, evil choice. It's you are pretty much a bad guy, but the choices you make are a little more nuanced.
Yeah, we wanted to go for not the comic book or the cartoonish evil where it's a mustache twirling villain. We wanted to have a lot of range and nuance to the actual choices you make. So you can go from black to slightly lighter shade of gray, effectively, in your choices.
And so we're seeing a little bit, we're seeing the trailer that we saw earlier in the show right now as well. Can you talk to me a little bit about how the engine has changed? Because this is the same engine from Pillars of Eternity.
Correct, yes.
But have you guys made any adjustments to it? Is there anything that you can do now with Tyranny that wasn't possible maybe with Pillars?
Well, I think the main thing we focused on with Tyranny was trying to take the foundation we created for Pillars and just use that to move forward and build an entirely new world, an entirely new gameplay system and engine for the gameplay that we didn't have to worry about trying to figure out how do you make an area, how do you create a spell or an ability. You can just focus on taking all that solid foundation that the Pillars team created for us and just make an entirely new experience with it, which has been great.
So this is building off of that.
Exactly.
You got the hard stuff out of the way with Pillars, and so what does that let you do then? Have you been able to be more agile with what you're designing?
Well, we definitely have been able to have a smaller team early on in the game, in development of the game, and actually just focus on defining the core concepts, like that core idea of what if evil won and how the quests develop and how the choices we give players have a lot of reactivity in the game. So rather than having to worry as much about like how do we actually make this area, we can see how can we make that area change based on the player's choices.
Cool. And so can you give me a little inside look at like what are some of those choices look like?
Well, I don't want to give away too much about the actual game because RPGs are very story-based, but in the very beginning of the game you can actually make choices during character creation that shape the overall development of the world. So based on those choices you've made, areas of the game will change dramatically from one playthrough to another. So different armies can be in control or conquering different areas, and you can make different alliances as you play through that change the entire quest line that you experience in the game.
Wow, and you were talking about how you are in charge of one of those armies. Is the scale bigger in Tyranny? Are you in fights with, hundreds of units? I imagine it doesn't go quite that far.
Not that far, definitely. We wanted to actually, with Tyranny, we actually wanted to take the party size. Pillars had a 6-person party. We wanted to bring it down to a 4-person, like you and 3 companions, to make it a bit more personal relationships, more closer interacting with your companions, because one of the things we added for this game is the ability for you and your companions to execute moves together that we call companion combos.
Yeah.
So we wanted to not have too many people where trying to manage that would be too confusing for people.
Yeah, our staff writer Chris Livingston back at PC Gamer mentioned that when he played, he saw this one where somebody kind of stamped one companion and then they shot up into the air and rained down arrows.
Yeah, it's called Death from Above.
Death from Above.
Yes.
Well, go ahead, please.
You can basically use the play, you channel energy and slam it into the ground, which launches your companion into the air, and then she gets an advantage on her enemies for firing arrows at them.
Can you tell us about any maybe other combos that we might expect?
Some of the combos we have, there's one that one of your companions can get that actually can suspend all the enemies around her in the air. They can't attack, but if you have range attacks, you can fire at them. She gets some free pot shots at them while they're helpless in the air.
Has being evil allowed you to do I want to say crueler spells?
Not necessarily cruel. I mean, if you've seen some of the traditional spells from Pillars of Eternity, they're pretty devastating if you think about it. But I guess the thing we were mainly focusing on with the actual dialogue choices and the choices you can make in quests of letting players roleplay that fantasy of evil, of being the real bastard who gets to make the decisions, and not worrying so much about oh, if I don't make the good choice, I'll be punished.
Right.
You actually get rewarded for making the evil choice.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Looking forward to Tyranny.
Definitely.
So last year, about a year ago at the PC Gaming Show, David Braben from Frontier Developments was up on this stage and got to announce Planet Coaster, their roller coaster simulation game. And in that time, it's now available for pre-order because it's been in alpha, and the community has just done amazing things with it in that year. Let's take a look at some of the things they've made.
Hey. Oh.
love that video. One of the things that might not be apparent in it is that all of those buildings, that big coliseum, those were all built within the game's building creator and editor, and it's just amazing what that community has done. But not to leave out Frontier Development's other game, Elite Dangerous had its Horizons update's next update, the 2.1 update launched the Engineers update that added loot, it added crafting items, and it revamped the mission system. That game is, of course, already available on Xbox One and PC, but let's take a look at what's been happening with Elite.
Here's what I know. These engineers, they make things work better. Faster drives, stronger shields, enhanced weapons, and a few specialist upgrades. Of course, you'll have to find them first, earn their trust, and they're gonna want something in return. Tech, resources, intelligence. You do all that. You bring them what they want. So when things get dangerous, and you need an edge, an engineer, they can get you what you need.
Alan Wilson from Tripwire. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. You were in the main show as well, John, and showed off what I want to talk about first, which is Killing Floor Incursion. Is that correct?
That's right, Killing Floor Incursion.
And it's your VR Killing Floor game.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because that just sounds downright terrifying. Like I'm not actually sure if I want to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. VR is, I mean, in and of itself, it's very immersive, but when you take a situation like Killing Floor where you have these very creepy settings and you have, I don't know, a human spider hybrid creature that's skittering across the ground, that's just so terrifying to see. You see it on a regular PC screen and it's kind of scary, but you see that thing, you feel like it's there, you feel like this spider creature's crawling up to you. It's just, yeah, it's so scary, but fun.
And do you guys see it as a horror game? Like it's terrifying enough, but it's still a first-person shooter. First, you were talking about reload animations and recoil in VR. It's a first-person shooter. It's not a horror game.
Yeah, it's a VR shooter. So it's scary. I mean, it is meant to scare you, but not. I mean, there are some jump scares when a monster walks around a corner. that you don't usually get in a first-person shooter. It's like because you're constantly panning your mouse around so fast, but in VR, you're looking this direction and you turn around and there's a monster right here.
So how do you guys handle movement? Because that's a big question in VR FPS games, right? Is a lot of people do the teleportation, some people just make it stationary. What do you guys go with?
Yeah, so we looked at a lot of different things. Well, first we just tried let's just let the player move around in the standard way, and that resulted in a lot of turned stomachs and vomiting. So that didn't work. And we didn't really want to go with the you're planted in one place, like the I call it the Hogan's Alley sort of approach. It's just we wanted something with more depth. So we're doing teleportation.
Cool.
We've got a really cool teleportation system, and it's pretty easy to use. And to me, it really solves that problem. Nobody gets sick, but you can still explore the environment. You can decide where you want to fight the monsters. It works.
So, Alan, tell me a little bit about the other thing you guys announced at the show, which is the Bullseye content pack. Is that correct, with the sharpshooter perk?
Yeah, we've got the sharpshooter perk, which everyone's been waiting for a while now, and it's been one of those things that everyone's been saying, this is the thing we want to play, and this is the thing, the next piece we want. So we've delivered on that. We've got all the sharpshooter weapons in there. How would you?
Player versus Zeds.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the next piece. The Player versus Zeds, we brought out a trial version of that a little earlier. Took a lot of feedback. I mean, John was talking about feedback before. I mean, immense amounts of feedback from early access. Took all that feedback, and we've just reworked a lot of the Player versus Zeds piece. Now, so that's so you play as the players as one team, Zeds, and then swap over. Everyone gets a chance to be both sides, and it gets fairly hilarious as well.
And I gotta ask, with the sharpshooter perk, are you guys worried at all about having a hyper-accurate class in a game that really rewards headshots in a way?
No, I mean, not really. It is, you know, one of the things that we discovered early on actually was that that because your FOV is so limited as the sharpshooter, you have to have your teammates keep the smaller monsters off of you. Otherwise, you just don't see them. So you'll be, oh, I'm going to line up this careful shot. Oh, crap, somebody's eating my face off. So, but he is very powerful as part of a team. He can clear out the big guys like the Scrake, the big guy with the chainsaw. He can take his head off at a distance. But once they get close, you have to have your teammates, your commandos, your support.
That's been one of the big pieces of feedback we've been taking through early access is getting that team dynamic set up so that, yeah, as you say, you need the perks like the commando or the firebug that then clear out the trash and cover everyone's backs so that the people like the sharpshooters and so on can get those big shots in.
And that content pack, actually, you activated it in the middle of the show, which is great. So let's also talk about the other game you guys are working on, Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. I got a chance to play this back at PAX East, actually, and had a lot of fun with it. So what have you guys been working on since then?
Yeah, we've been, I mean, as you say, you played it at PAX East. Yeah. You kind of saw it in its first public incarnation there.
Yeah.
We're just getting we've got the basics in place. What we've been working on a lot now is all those infantry mechanics. We've been looking at, and the asymmetry, particularly with things like, giving the Americans all the really big, powerful stuff. Everything up to, I mean, you didn't get a chance to use it, but all the way up to napalm and, serious bomber strikes and all that stuff going on. And then, with the Vietnamese side, looking at how are we actually going to work on things like tripwires and mines and little traps and all these things. How are those going to work? And because one of the things is we always want players to have a counter to everything that's going on, so long as you remember to use it, so long as you're thinking. So that we're just trying out now the mechanics where some of the Americans, like a scout or a point man, may be able to find these traps. So everyone doesn't just step on them, because if all you do is plant a bunch of traps and people step on them, it's going to get a little repetitive. So you need those counters to them. We always want people to have the opportunity to counter something that's happening, to think about what move they're going to make next.
I imagine it's kind of difficult to balance a trip mine with napalm, but I believe you guys can do it. So the main thing I want to know is when do you think people can get their hands on it?
Okay. We're actually running, just the very first alpha at the moment with a few people in it. One of the things we want to do with this one, because we've tried so many different ways over the years of getting everyone involved in the game as it's developed. We've gone with big beta programs in some games, with early access with Killing Floor 2. What we want to do with Vietnam is we want to focus on, again, keep it very focused, because one of the key lessons we learned with Killing Floor 2 is you just get this wall of feedback, which is amazing, but coping with it can be really hard. So with Vietnam, we're going to go through, little alpha, slightly bigger alphas, up to betas, probably, starting to open it up around August, September time this year. So more and more people will be able to get their hands on it. Cool. We want to get it really focused.
Great.
And get real quality feedback back.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much to both of you for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Next up, we're going to be joined by another guest who is part of the main show. They showed off Sieges in Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. It was, I mean, I'm very excited for that. A brand new trailer coming out. We're talking with Frank Elliott, community manager at Tailworlds Entertainment. How you doing, Frank?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back on the stage. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more. Expand on the Sieges stuff, because we saw a great trailer during the show. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit first about the destructibility of it, because I loved seeing like the walls crumbling and the doors kind of falling apart as they were being sieged.
Well, the way we work, the way we've implemented destruction is we've really tried to make sure that it all has a really good gameplay focus. So you can break off parts of the top of the walls, like the battlements, and what that does is expose the archers behind. So when you're having these sort of ranged battle between your two sets of archers, that's going to really tip the fight in your favor as soon as you break out their defenses. You can break the enemy siege weapons, which is really super important as well, because destroying the enemy like ballistae, mangonels, that's going to give your battering ram and your siege tower better passage when you're assaulting the castle. Also the gates are obviously destroyable as well, and we got the fire damage in there too, so that's going to do extra damage to wooden structures.
And can you tell me a little bit, like, what kind of siege engines are we seeing? We see a battering ram, like you were saying right here. There was a siege tower a moment ago.
Yeah.
What are your weapons of war in this?
Okay, so like you said, the siege tower, the battering ram, you've also got the ladders as well. And the thing is, all of those can be repelled and pushed back. Like the siege tower can be destroyed, even after it reaches the walls. The battering ram, that can get destroyed and impacted. Actually, the pieces of the roof can get blown away as well. That exposes your sort of the pushing soldiers underneath it.
So it's the same or a similar destruction system to the one that is present in the castles, basically.
Right, essentially, yeah.
Cool.
The ladders also, they can be pushed back. For the range weapons, we have the ballista and the mangonel. There's also a couple more we're going to announce later.
Cool. And I believe you were talking with Sean that there were something like 300 units on screen at one time?
Actually, 500 in that
500,
battle.
excuse me. Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
We're shooting for more in the final game actually as well. I mean, this is it's a decently large battle, but we can really push it because obviously we're making our own engine, and we can really customize all the graphics, everything to our exact needs, and really optimize it to get the most amount of agents that we want.
That's great to hear. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the setting of Bannerlord and Mount & Blade 2. Because you told me earlier before the show that you've actually gone backwards in time from the first game. Can you tell me just why you made that choice?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, one of the main things is that it's quite an interesting period to explore, really. You go further towards the Dark Ages, and you can really explore how the different cultures behave. We have the new Battalion faction, which is more of a Celtic-themed kind of culture, which obviously wasn't maybe as present later on. So it's interesting, for us personally, when we're making the game, the cultures and themes and kind of warfare that we're interested in are really present there. Also, we had some hints in the lore of the previous game towards an empire. And so it's great for us to be able to use this game in Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord to actually explore what this empire was at its peak. And it actually starts in the midst of a civil war in Bannerlord as well, so it's kind of exciting there.
Cool, so I want to talk about mods, man. Because modding is a big part of Mount & Blade 1, and you guys have a ravenous community. They just, they eat up everything you do. I mean, we had you guys at the PC Gamer Weekender, and everyone was clamoring for that footage constantly. So how long until the battering ram is a Star Destroyer that is shooting lasers at the castle, which is a Death Star? I guess I just did Empire versus Empire there, so I'm showing my roots as a Star Wars fan. But what are you guys expecting from mods?
We're expecting to be surprised, really. I mean, that's kind of what always happens with the mods. I don't know about Star Destroyers and Death Stars, but I mean, we're giving much more potential, much more tools than we've ever done before. So really, we're just ready for our minds to be blown by what they come up with.
And not slowing down with mod support. You keep keeping that same stuff.
Far from it.
That's great. That's great to hear. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Next up, I'm very excited to talk about this game because I'm a huge mech fan. I think everybody has a little bit of a mech fan in them deep somewhere. We're going to be talking to Harebrained Schemes about Battletech, also about their game Necropolis. I'm joined by Jordan Weissman. How you doing, Jordan?
Well, thanks for having me.
You are as Evan put it to me, the father of Battletech. And you guys have been doing a lot of Kickstarter updates. You kind of, since the Kickstarter, you've been, not broadcasting everything, but you've been showing the progress. So can you tell me just a little bit about what you guys have been working on?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that we feel really strongly about when we ask our fans to help us create a game is to make them very included in the creation of the game. So that's why all those updates. And where we are is really exciting. We, after many years of making games, kind of got burned out on the giant design docs and the lengthy debates about features and mechanics, and instead have moved to, at Harebrained Schemes, a really rapid prototyping kind of methodology for developing. So pretty much after the close of the Kickstarter, we dove into the combat sim and have been building prototypes ever since. We got to where we think is a really fun game, and then we commenced on the phase we're in now, which is a combat vertical slice. The interesting thing about Battletech is that this is really kind of two games nestled within each other. The first is the combat sim, that's the core of it, right? And then around that is a simulation of being a mercenary in this kind of interstellar universe that is degrading. And so it's got a whole financial sim of how to be a mercenary inside of that world.
I love the art style when we're looking at some concept art right now, and it's a very cool kind of refined but also punky sort of future. Can you tell me just a little bit about the lore? Not many people I think are Battletech lore masters. So where is this game set?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's 30 years of lore, and we wouldn't ask everybody to brush up on all of that before playing the game. For God's sakes, no. So that's one of the reasons we chose to put this game at the very beginning of the Battletech timeline, which in our fiction is 3025. It's an era where you've had these giant interstellar noble houses battling with each other to claim the throne of a star league that for a short period of time had united them. And they're exhausted from this fight and are turning to mercenaries to help kind of carry their banners forward, and that's where you get involved. The structure of the campaign is an open-ended one. So it's very heavily based on the reputation you build as a player, because each of these noble houses, you have to kind of negotiate with each of them and all of the minor players that exist underneath them. And so you negotiate with each of them and figure out kind of how your reputation is going to go. And there is, of course, a campaign story which gets you kind of kicked off into the world. But then, based upon the choices you make, you can stick with that story and take it to conclusion, or kind of veer off and go off into your own story within the world.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm just excited for more mech games. I'm a huge fan of that. Let's talk about your other game, though. Harebrained Schemes is also working on Necropolis,
Indeed.
Which is a procedurally generated sort of roguelike-y action game.
Yeah, indeed, it is very roguelike in that we love everything from not knowing what potion you're drinking to not knowing where the dungeon is laid out the next time you play. One of the key things for us there is that the real-time nature makes it very, very action, and it's permadeath, which is scary, but also means that your actions have real consequences.
Right.
One of the most exciting features of this is the 4-player multi-player cooperative, which is really a great deal of fun, being able to get in the world. And the world scales up and down in terms of its difficulty immediately based upon when players join or drop out. And players can join with your group as deep into the Necropolis as you are, but they'll start out at kind of higher level, and you have to kind of defend them until they can carry their own weight. So it's a really dynamic and very, very fun game.
Do you see the co-op as kind of the way the game is meant to be played, or is that single-player experience just as important?
The single player is just as important for us. We definitely see people trying to do speed runs through this and challenging themselves to find all the nooks and crannies, which are of course different in every playthrough. But I think co-op is one of the things anytime you can introduce other players into a game, that's just a lot of fun, right? Because there's nothing more entertaining than your friends. And so while we really focused very heavily to make sure the single player game was great, making it great in co-op was a very large objective of ours.
So when do you think we can get our hands on Necropolis?
Well, I'm excited to say that Necropolis will be available on Steam July 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then available on Sony and Xbox a little later in the summer.
So coming right up.
Indeed.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
That's
there you
true.
go. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Next, we're joined by a game that probably lots of you know, DayZ, big, popular zombie game based off of Arma, has become just its own world at this point. I'm joined by Brian Hicks, creative director. How you doing, Brian?
Doing all right.
So talk to me about some of the recent updates to the game, because the game just got its very hotly anticipated, I believe, 0.60 update.
Yeah, it's on our experimental, kind of our testing branch right now. You
Yeah.
have to opt into it on Steam. But we've, you could say we received kind of overwhelming amount of attention. We didn't anticipate it. The branch usually supports like 2,000 players. It's meant to test, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole game on early access is meant to test, but it's called experimental for a reason.
Uh-huh.
And we put the build live, I don't know, a couple weeks back, and started to notice Twitch, on Twitch, that we were in the top 10. I think we were like game number 4, but if you look at the streams, it was all the server browser. Just everybody was trying to get into the servers, and there was not enough slots.
Wow, in the experimental branch.
In the experimental branch, yes. It kind of caught us off guard, and when we looked at the numbers later on, that branch, out of the roughly 350,000 people that play DayZ every month, 95,000 concurrents over 24 hours were trying to access this testing build. It just caught us completely off guard. You're right, it is very anticipated. Like, people have been talking about it for a while. I mean, Dean talked about this before he moved on to RocketWorks, about the new renderer for the Infusion engine that powers DayZ, moving to DirectX 11 and kind of finally tackling that client-side performance issue that everybody had as their biggest gripe. Oh, my frames. And I'll be honest, I knew what we were getting, and it looked good, but I was just, second it hits the consumer branch, there's going to be problems, I know, and it went out there, and the adulation and the excitement, the performance other players were getting was better than I could manage to get on my machine, and it started to hype myself. But yeah, it's a huge update for us.
Well, it's great to hear that went so well. And can you talk a little bit about, like, specifically what some of those performance upgrades are? You talked about the Enfusion engine as well.
Yeah, so Enfusion is effectively the end product of the core engine that DayZ will be on when we finish development. It's a big focus for Bohemia because we're going to use it for future titles, obviously, moving forward. We're kind of an engine company to a degree.
Right.
And yeah, so visually, it was difficult for me at first because I see it every day to see the change, but the consumers hadn't seen it. It was kept, you know, internally. And when we pushed it out there, from things that are so simple as our inventory screen, you know, moving to a new skin, a new tech from other technology in the company to make the UI run far less machine intensive for the performance there. Then moving to things like you see on the screen here, we have volumetric fog and new rain. Just these kind of rainstorms on the coast that can occur. Like with this footage here we showed a little bit earlier, in that rainstorm, you can see the post-process from this new DirectX 11 Enfusion render, where it has this kind of diffusion on the characters as they're further out in the fog. So I couldn't tell if another player was coming at me or if it was an infected, what was going on. I just knew there was a threat and it was coming. And it kind of tends to make the coastal experiences, when the weather's bad and the fog rolls in, it gets very kind of claustrophobic and very scary. It adds a whole new kind of environmental threat to DayZ that we haven't had just yet.
So I hate to ask this question when 0.60 is still on the experimental branch, but what are you guys looking at moving forward? What's next?
Well, next up for our 0.61 update is a couple things I'm personally really excited about. I mean, obviously, we're adding a server queue now after the 0.60 stuff. But for 0.61, the guys over at Arma were you know, helpful enough to sit down and talk with us about the Eden update that they just recently pushed out and the audio impact that could have on DayZ. That's one of the great things about working in a company that does so much tech and engine work in-house and have this 15-year history with their own technology that you know, the Arma guys sat down, they said, this could really work for DayZ. And you know, I look over to Eugen, my producer, and I said, Eugen, can we do this? And the decision was made. And if you listen to the audio in Arma 3 after the Eden update, it's just leagues above what I ever thought we could do in DayZ. So we have the server server queue coming up. We have the module audio from Eden coming over from Arma. And then we're going to be pushing out the first of our Predator AI. And recently, I think around Christmas, we talked about wolves. And that's specifically what we're looking at pushing in the next 0.61 build. It's the next big thing after 0.60 hits, is putting out Predator AI, wolves specifically. We want to work on other ones later on. Server queue, and just completely rehauling the tech behind our audio.
Well, very cool. Thank you very much for coming and talking with me about it.
Thank you.
Up next, we have a game that's probably the game that's come from farthest of any of them so far in the show. Let's take a look at the trailer for Badia. I'm joined by Ahmad Jadala, Director of Development at Semaphore Lab, all the way from Saudi Arabia, man. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and Badia just looks great. So can you tell me just a little bit about the game? Because I think it's probably flying under most people's radars at this point.
We actually just announced it a couple of months ago with the reveal trailer that showed some of the overall picture of the game, where we're heading with the product. And today we're going to be showing exclusively the first gameplay based on the world of Badia.
And so I just have to address, you've come from Saudi Arabia. What is it like developing games in Saudi Arabia? I think we don't hear many success stories or developer stories at all in general, not just success, from that region.
Actually, this is our second project right now. The first one was featured by Apple, was picked up by Sony for the PlayStation Plus. So a lot of, I mean, it was kind of our first test, our first attempt at making a fully featured game. And now we're more mature, hopefully more wiser, and now we're working on this different, very different project in very different genre.
Well, we're looking at the gameplay right now. So walk me through what we're looking at.
So Badia is an infinite procedurally generated game. It's a survival RPG in an infinite procedural open world set in the desert post-World War I. And so if you've seen things like Lawrence of Arabia, you're kind of on the same feeling, the same general setting. So in the game, what we're looking at right now is a gameplay part where you're exploring one of the points of interest that we have scattered throughout the game. In this case, it's a Bedouin camp. And here you're just greeted by basically the people of the camp is giving you the traditional Arabian coffee. That's optional thing that you can do. You have different RPG-like features in the game, such as looting different objects, skill trees, crafting, gathering different loot and resources from the environment, and using them to create and craft new weapons and new items.
So survival games tend to take a couple different flavors. This is a multiplayer? Are you in this procedural world with other people?
Right now we're going to start an alpha one with single player. However, we're adding co-op and multiplayer in the future as we progress through early access.
Great. So you're going through crafting right now. You see you're trading with people as well.
Exactly.
And you said it was open or procedurally generated. Exactly. So are these little camps in that railroad that we saw, all that stuff is just sort of dropped into the world?
We have around currently 10 different points of interest, including military bases, ancient ruins, the open sea that you can build a ship and explore to find different islands and go pearl diving, many other activities. So it's not just an open barren desert. You're going to have a lot of activities to fill the world with, including hunting, because you need to eat to survive. You're going to have to craft and buy different clothing items, so like head clothing, for example, to avoid getting hyperthermia or hypothermia. And so you have to wear the appropriate layers of dressing. You'll have different weather cycles, including snow, because it does actually snow in the desert, so you have to wear multiple layers of clothing to keep yourself warm. And you have different mounts as well that you can use to navigate, not only horses and camels, but also different vehicles and airplanes even.
Wow. And can you tell me just real quickly about the engine that you're using? Did you guys develop the engine yourself?
We're using Unity, and this
Great.
is our second project using Unity, targeting this level of quality.
Well, I'm looking very much forward to playing this game. When can we get our hands on it? When do you think it'll be coming out?
Hopefully Alpha 1 is coming out on early access late this summer. Currently what you've seen, still work in progress, still pre-alpha, and we're adding the required polished layer for animations and gameplay features as we speak.
Well, it looks very fun. Thank you very much for coming all this way and joining us to show it off.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much.
We're joined now by a developer mainly known for historical medieval fighting games, but now going a little bit more magical. Steve Piggott, the president of Torn Banner Studios. I wanted to make sure I got that right. That's a big title. How are you doing, man? Talking about Mirage Arcane Warfare.
Doing good, you?
Yeah, you were here in the main show as well. You showed off a new trailer for the game. So talk to me a little bit about it. You've talked in the past about why you guys departed from just historical combat of chivalry, medieval warfare. But it's impressive to me that Mirage still feels like chivalry when it comes to its combat, that kind of responsive rock, paper, scissors sort of gameplay.
Yeah, we really wanted to take, we had what we thought was an interesting melee combat system. We wanted to take a ranged combat system and integrate that together. And Magic gave us a ton of opportunity for doing that, a ton of freedom. And so we've done that in a way that allows players to add just to be way more creative on the battlefield, and that's a huge thing for us. We want players to feel like they can actually choose how they encounter their opponents. So, you know, a lot of the fight ends up taking place in the sky now. They're leaping up above each other or teleporting behind each other and attacking people from behind them. So we used Magic to basically give players more power and make them be able to defeat multiple people at one time, which is one of the most satisfying experiences in competitive multiplayer.
So you mentioned it, talking about it as specifically almost a ranged combat system. Is that where you really started with Magic? Is that what we can expect from Magic in the game, is mainly its ranged stuff?
Well, no, actually the game is at least half melee. It's still fundamentally actually a sword fighting game. even though there is ranged combat, we've actually built that into the sword fighting system, so it feels like a sword fight from 20 feet away. Is kind of the idea there. So the magic actually can allow you to leap through the air, fly all over the place, or shoot projectiles and kind of curve them around corners. And this is core to our goal to give players control over their character, where it really feels like you are actually doing something impressive. So you can actually almost all the projectiles in the game. When you shoot them, if you kind of do a flick of your wrist with the mouse, you'll actually kind of curve that around corners, hit people you can't see, or there's groups of people fighting and you're shooting them over your teammates and down on the enemy. So really dynamic combat.
That's very similar to Chivalry's combat system, where you couldn't just press a button, right? Like you had to use it in weird ways to get around your opponent. But it's still a very big change, both combat-wise and aesthetically. You guys have gone for this beautiful kind of pinks and purples and oranges. Are you worried at all about like alienating part of your fan base with this switch?
Well, I think that's something that some subset of people are going to look at bright colors and be like, oh, that's not for me. But for us, it's actually a point of contrast. I mean, our game is fundamentally about the moment-to-moment combat and what that experience is like. And we use the colors to kind of give you this really clean atmosphere to make things readable and we make the combat really reactable. So we use these colors so that it's interesting visually, but we don't have a lot of noise in the background, so you can focus on fighting people. And ultimately the game is a very violent game. It's a very, I used the word crunchy earlier. We love that word because we want people to feel rewarded when they get their kills. So I think you got to look a little bit deeper there and realize that we are using that to create contrast, which is really satisfying for people. It's kind of a surprising and humorous violence, if that makes sense.
Right, and it's also, it's providing two different experiences for maybe two different type of players too. If somebody doesn't like the magic, they go play Chivalry still. But Alex Hayter from Torn Banner recently wrote an article on PCGamer.com about why you guys decided not to jump specifically into Chivalry 2 right away after its success. Could you just talk a little bit about what your thinking was for going such a different direction?
Yeah, that was a tough decision for us because we love Chivalry, and we know that tons of people love Chivalry and want us to do that. We really want to do that at some point in the future. But for us, it came down to the fact that we're creative guys, and we want to put our all into everything that we do. And for us, what we were most excited about was a new challenge. And like I said before, we had melee combat that we liked. We loved crafting that experience, creating something no one's had before. And we wanted to do that again, and so we thought mixing ranged and melee was the route to go. And Magic gave us that freedom to do it. So.
Cool, and when can we get our hands on Mirage?
Mirage is coming out later this year. Mirage is coming out this fall, and there'll be a beta at the end of the summer this year.
Great, well thanks very much for coming back on the show.
Thank you.
Now, Killing Floor 2 was not the only VR shooter that we saw at the show today. We also had Crow Team show off Serious Sam in VR, and I'm joined by a couple developers from Crow Team right now. Ante and Nika, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Tom.
Thank you so much for joining me. You guys showed off Serious Sam VR for the Oculus Touch, is that right?
That's right, but the game also works with HTC Vive.
Cool.
And it's supposed to work with every headset that supports motion controllers.
That's great to hear. So I asked Tripwire earlier in the post-show this same question, but how did you guys go about the problem, or not problem, but the challenge of movement in VR? Like I said to them, some people try teleporting, some people try stationary. What'd you guys go with?
Are you recycling the questions?
Sorry?
Are you recycling the questions?
Well, I think it's still applicable.
Okay, so the game is room scale. There's room scale movement. You can move. You're not totally stationary. So if the projectile comes and you're really fast enough, you can dodge. You can move left or right. And if the enemy charges at you, it will stop right in front of you and it will do melee damage. It won't charge through you. That would be super weird. Yeah.
Cool. So, and Serious Sam has always been sort of a more arcadey, more over-the-top shooter.
Yes.
How does that play out in VR?
It plays excellent.
It's so much fun to play. I just couldn't stop playing it, and I never got sick of it.
Cool. And what kind of game modes are there? Is it more of like a score attack thing? Are you going through a story? How does that work?
There will be a story mode, yes. So the story is this: the mental is back, so the Sam is back to save the universe.
Earth is getting attacked and aliens.
You start aboard a spaceship, and then you travel across the universe, meet nice aliens, or not so nice. You get to shoot them in the face, so it's extremely fun.
Blood.
gore, everything.
So, Nika, I'm wondering, what did you guys do differently about, like, did anything have to change in Serious Sam's kind of regular formula for this?
Well, the scale changes and everything is closer, and then things are getting kind of confused, different than in Serious Sam and PC. But we had to test it out and put models, environments, and testing out the colors, how the haze works, just tweaking it, and then we got a really nice result.
Cool. So it seems like that kind of not quite realistic graphics would really play well into VR as well. Can you guys talk to me, like, is it going to look and feel like Serious Sam when you're playing it?
Yeah, extreme colors and everything in your face, but it's not annoying. It's like, it works because you're inside, you're there, it's not boring, so everything is flashy and exciting.
And Ante, you mentioned that the enemies would do melee combat, and I believe in the trailer we also saw like a sword or something along those lines.
Yeah, there's a chainsaw there, but we are working on a final list of weapons. And I mean, even that list won't be final because we are bringing the game to Steam's early access this summer, so we are looking forward to feedback from fans. And we already got some feedback, some negative feedback as well. A lot of fans were disappointed that we didn't announce Serious Sam 4. But rest assured that that game is coming, so we are working.
It's in production.
It's in production. We're working on Serious Sam 4, but this is like a pet project that grew, and it grew on us. We started tinkering with VR technology as soon as we got our first headset, and we knew that we will make a game for VR, so we couldn't hold off any longer. There it is. It's coming.
So this is just a little bit of icing on the cake, on the Serious Sam cake, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned...
Like if the ice is bloody.
Grotesque icing on the cake, yes. But you mentioned that you started doing this right after you got your first VR kit. Was it always on your mind when you first started about VR, were you just like, we need to do this? There needs to be a Serious Sam VR?
You know, the Serious Sam is all about hordes of enemies, waves of enemies, blood, gore, and in your face. So it's first-person game. So to make it a VR game, to be Serious Sam actually, in that space, it made total sense. It was a no-brainer for us.
Cool. Well, when can we expect to play it for those of us who have VR headsets? Right now.
Right now we have a playable demo.
You can come to our booth at Devolver and test it out. So.
Great.
Yeah,
well,
the trailer really doesn't do it justice. You have to try it.
You have to, no, it's a thing when you really have to be there. You really have to test it.
I feel like that's a big part of VR games. Is you really have to be in it.
Be there. Will you be there?
I will. I promise. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Well, we have finally reached the end of the PC Gaming Show presented by AMD. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. A special thanks to everyone in the house still here for the show. Be sure to catch anything you may have missed along with the rest of our E3 coverage at PCGamer.com, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bueno, chicos, pues ya estamos aquí otra vez de vuelta con todos vosotros para contaros aquí en esta posconferencia de PC Gaming Show qué tal os ha parecido, qué tal lo habéis visto. Y pero bueno, DVD.
Está muy bien, pero se han empalagado mucho a hablar. Lo que hablábamos antes de la de Microsoft, la han hecho en esta. Se han empalagado a hablar y la han hecho
yo creo que para mí han hablado mucho más en la de PC que en la de Microsoft.
Sí. Por eso se han empalagado a hablar aquí como... O sea, demasiado cansinos han sido, yo creo. Muy larga. Y han enseñado mucho, eso,
Han enseñado cosillas. Hay que decir que con respecto a la del pasado E3, la verdad es que la conferencia ha mejorado mucho.
Sí, eso sí.
Ha mejorado mucho, pero todavía yo creo que dista todavía mucho todavía de estar al nivel.
Es que era como más tranquila, más...
Sí.
Yo quiero más...
Es que yo creo que tanta charla, tanto mostrar hablando y tal, te llegaban como un poquito como
a cansar,
a adormecer
durante de esta conferencia de la PC.
Pero bueno, han mostrado cosillas, han mostrado una nueva tarjeta gráfica, una Radeon RX 480, tarjeta gráfica mejor refrigerada, más rápida en cuanto a FPS, con una GPU más potente. Mostraron también un vídeo de las instalaciones de AMD, de cómo fabrican todos los procesadores y todo. La verdad es que empezó con AMD, la verdad es que eso estuvo bien, pero claro, solamente un vídeo, mucha charla y tal, pero bueno, tampoco estuvo nada mal.
Bueno, luego salió el Dawn of War 3, un juego de estrategia que no dijeron fecha ni nada, pues otro juego más de estrategia básico de los que hacen los juegos de PC, ¿no? Que son juegos de estrategia, o MMO, o RPG, juegos de estrategia.
Juegos de estrategia, los RPG.
Exactamente. Luego salió, a mí sí me llamó la... Bueno, este fue como un indie que se llama Oxygen Not Included, que es como un pequeño indie ahí, raro, que nada. Que tampoco, no dijeron casi ninguna fecha.
Luego a mí uno que sí me llamó mucho la atención fue el Devolver, que estaba disponible para verano de este año, decían para verano de este año, 2016. Y la verdad es que hicieron una demostración jugable de juego que fue, la verdad es que brutal. Pero el Devolver, la verdad es que ha estado muy guapo.
La verdad que sí. A mí
muy guapo.
A mí sí que me gustó. ARK Survival Evolved. Es de animales que te puedes meter dentro de como los animales y puedes manejar cualquier animal.
Estuvo muy guapo.
Me encantó
muy guapo también. Ahí que podía manejar un pez o una araña o un velociraptor o alguna cosa.
Exactamente, sí, de todo.
Podía manejar de todo un poco.
Arañas, monos, osos, de todo.
Y los monos encima, lo que nos moló, es que encima se lanzaban piedras a los humanos y todo.
Sí.
Que estaba muy guapo.
Luego, Gigant Cop. Otro juego de 2016, que es que ni le entendí, si te digo la verdad. ni le entendí. Yo juego de PC, las cosas como son, yo no soy de PC. Luego el Mount Blade 2, que es un sambo, que ese sí le entendí,
el Mount Blade, de verdad, el Mount Blade, que era ese juego de guerra, era ese juego de conquista, ¿no?
Sí, exactamente.
Ese también estuvo bastante bien. Además, por momentos recordaba como una especie como de temática parecida al Lineage of Legend, al LoL, en tema de conquista. Como vosotros sabéis, en el LoL pues es un MOBA y tenéis que coger a vuestro personaje, ir subiéndolo de nivel y tal, y ir destruyendo las torres enemigas, luego el nexo principal y tal y cual. Y esto pues era un poquito muy parecido, pero dentro de lo que es un juego sandbox en tercera persona, de guerra medieval, y cogiendo y capturando lo que sería el castillo de tu enemigo.
Exactamente. Luego está el Lawbreakers. Otro juego que...
Otro juego que lo han mostrado y ya está. Y ya está.
Este sí le conozco. Doom, ¿no?
Claro, vas a conocer Doom, perraco.
Doom, pero que fue de lo que ya habíamos visto, ¿no? Que ya se había visto anteriormente, así que nada.
Sí, BT se anunció ya.
Devolver, que ya habíamos hablado de él.
Y este es otro juego que a mí me llamó la atención que DVD no pudo ver el no puedo ver el tráiler. Vampire. Es un juego que me ha recordado mucho temática Dark Souls 3 y Bloodborne. La verdad es que era igual, o sea, si lo estabais viendo, o sea, era como tener a vuestro personaje, a vuestro guerrero de, como digo, de DS3 o de Bloodborne, pero en vez de tener un personaje así, un vampiro. Controlando un vampiro. Los remates por detrás, muy característicos de este tipo de juegos, los hacía chupando la sangre de su enemigo, incluso luego tenía poderes también que podía controlar él la sangre para crear, pues yo qué sé, pues para crear a lo mejor un pincho y empalar a su enemigo o lo que sea. La verdad es que estuvo bastante guapo. Fue cortito, pero estuvo muy bien. Yo tengo ganas de ver más de ese vampiro.
Luego Killing Floor 2 y Incursión, que salieron los dos. Me pareció... Un juego muy bueno para divertirte un rato.
Sí, y a mí me recordó un poco, no sé si a ti también, DVD, a como una especie de modo zombies de un COD.
Sí, pero la verdad es que se parece como si fuera un zombie del COD.
Sí, porque claro, el juego de matar zombies, pero la temática me recordó mucho a eso. Parecía que me estaba echando unas partidas y la verdad es que a mí el modo zombies del COD sí me gusta y la verdad es que este juego me gustó bastante. Me gustó bastante verlo y la verdad es que puede estar muy guapo este Killing Floor 2.
Obsidian Tyranny, que...
Otro
juego más que yo no entendí.
Una ambientación pues muy similar a un Diablo 2. Me pareció una ambientación muy similar a Diablo 2. Se mostró un tráiler de juego al mismo tiempo combinándolo con un gameplay del mismo, pero vamos, un juego con una temática muy parecida a Diablo 2.
Luego también sacaron el Super Hot, que es un juego para la VR, que lo mostraron que era una pasada.
Una pasada, chaval. Ese juego estuvo guapo también. ¿Ves? Si es que más juegos y menos hablar. Si cuando empezaron a mostrar juegos de la conferencia de PC ya empezó a adquirir otro nivel.
A mí tengo que decir que es o muy parecido o un PT. Para mí esto era un PT que se llama Observer. Para mí se parecía un PT.
Y la verdad es que sí. Parecía igual un PT, pero como futurístico.
Sí, pero para mí era un PT. Yo lo que vi...
Sí, porque se pasaban ahí por puertas así como futuristas y tal y cual.
Ibas cambiando como
de zona y de
como
tal.
Si cambiaras a otro mundo, dices tú. Como un PT. Para mí es que era como un PT, muy parecido.
Habrá que saber más porque no dijeron ni fecha ni nada, así que habrá que estar atentos para ver exactamente este Observer.
Drop Zone.
Otro juego también que se mostró por ahí un poquito, tampoco es que nos llamara mucho la atención, después de ver por ejemplo Observer, que no estuvo mal.
Exactamente. A mí Observer sí me gustó y por eso apunté aquí. Parecía PT. Luego Arma 3, ¿no? Que sale el 12 de julio.
Arma 3 Apex, que salía como has dicho el 12 de julio de 2016, un juego que a mí me recordó mucho a la cooperación que tienes que hacer. Si es verdad que el juego es así, habría que ver si lo que mostraron era algún tipo de modalidad de juego en concreto y tal, pero vamos, lo que se pudo ver era muy parecido a Rainbow Six Siege en estilo colaboración, de que tendrías que contar con tu compañero. Sería importante contar con tu compañero para poder seguir avanzando en el juego.
Yo le dejaría ahí tirado y que yo me voy para adelante.
Joder, 1000 monos.
Luego, porque yo soy así, por eso nunca me gustan los juegos de disparo normalmente.
Claro.
The Turing Test, que es un juego de puzzles.
Y la verdad es que estuvo chulo, porque puedes coger ahí, porque es un juego de completar un puzzle para pasar al siguiente nivel, a la siguiente plataforma, pero ayudándote de un arma que puedes coger con ese arma los cubos y es como un arma como de imantada, por decirlo así de alguna forma. Y la verdad es que estaba chulo verlo, ¿eh?
Sí, luego un survival que se llama Survival Strategy Overland. Que salió hoy mismo ha salido, el día 13 de junio.
El día 13 de junio, hoy mismo ha salido ya a la venta este Overland.
Exactamente. Luego el Dual Universe, que es un MMO.
Futurístico.
Me encantó, lo tengo que decir, y me encantó. No es un juego de PC, pero si tengo la oportunidad de jugarle, me encantaría.
La verdad es que estaba muy guapo, vimos como un personaje se estaba construyendo su propia nave, que navegaba con ella, que podía ir por el espacio, visitar otros planetas, no sé, la demostración del tráiler que pudimos ver iba acompañada con gameplay también, con partes del propio juego. La verdad es que estuvo muy bien. Fue un juego que nos llamó a nosotros personalmente bastante la atención.
Exactamente. Luego Deus Ex, que es otro juego.
Yo creo que lo mejor de la conferencia.
Se curraron el final, hay que decirlo. El final se lo curraron demasiado.
Nos encantó. La verdad es que lo poco que vimos, la ambientación, la jugabilidad, el juego estaba realmente increíble. Como venía acostumbrando siendo un Deus Ex. Yo esperaba ver algo de Deus Ex. Me alegro de que lo hayan mostrado en la conferencia de PC. Fue acojonante ver Deus Ex y para mí lo mejor de la conferencia.
Bueno, sí, de la conferencia sí, ¿no? Porque luego pasamos a lo que fue la postconferencia, ¿no? Que salieron juegos como Hitman, Battled, otra vez el King Floor 2, Mode Blade 2, que sacaron aquí, ya sacaron muestras de cómo se jugaban y todo eso. El DayZ,
juego de zombies, que está siendo muy famoso y muy popular entre los gamers de PC.
Exactamente. Mirage, Arcane Warfare, Vadilla, Necropolis, Planet Coaster, que es el del parque de atracciones.
El del parque de atracciones, este era bastante guapo.
El parque de atracciones, era una pasada.
Yo me volvería loco. Yo si tengo un juego así para construir un parque de atracciones, yo me vuelvo loco. Le pongo montañas rusas de, yo que sé, de 200 metros al parque de atracciones.
La más grande del universo.
La más grande.
Y luego el Elite Dangerous y Tyranny.
Tyranny, claro, que luego Tyranny ya estuvieron hablando, antes de mostrar en esta post-conferencia que hicieron los de PC Gaming Show, ya estuvieron antes hablando de él.
Exactamente.
Claro, o sea que se mostraron muchos juegos de los que ya habían hablado antes de la post-conferencia y otros de los cuales no habían hablado, como por ejemplo Hitman, para mostrar seguramente ya ahí su nuevo, ya como habéis podido ver, su nuevo capítulo, que tenéis vosotros el primero en el canal, pero que ya toca ya nuevo capítulo de Hitman, gran juego Hitman. Y para nosotros, pues algunos juegos de la postconferencia y Deus Ex, yo creo que eso, junto con la nueva tarjeta gráfica, la nueva Radeon que quería sacar MD, yo creo que fueron lo más destacado de la conferencia.
Sí. Yo creo que esta conferencia para mí un 7,5 y ya está. Porque sacaron muy buenos juegos, pero le pongo ese 7,5 por los juegos que sacaron unos muy buenos juegos. Pero...
ya sí, el hablar tanto también mata mucho.
Me mató demasiado el hablar, demasiado.
Así que nada, chicos, por nuestra parte un placer, por parte de un servidor, TulaLlevas y mi compañero DvD.
Antes de nada, seguimos regalando los discos, que después de la micro se nos ha olvidado porque ha sido una pasada la Microsoft. Pero seguimos regalando discos, Noctambules y Cardone, Soul in the Darkness, ¿no? Invisibles, y el otro es
Icarus Dream.
Y las dos entradas, que seguimos regalando las dos entradas para ese pedazo de concierto de Zona Rock, contestando a la pregunta, ¿cuál de estos juegos los queremos los dos? No solo uno, queremos los dos ver durante todas estas conferencias, que son Resident Evil 7, Crash Bandicoot, Watch Dogs 2
y God of War. Si saliera alguno de ellos...
God of War 4, claro.
Efectivamente, 4. Si saliera alguno de ellos, ¿cuál creéis vosotros que sería nuestro juego favorito si se mostrara cualquiera de ellos, pues, en cualquier conferencia?
Exactamente.
De las conferencias. Porque claro, tenéis para elegir.
Y si alguna se ha nombrado, pues también.
Así que contestarnos a través de los comentarios en el vídeo, en YouTube, a través de nuestras redes sociales, de Twitter y de Facebook. Y animaros, que no os dé vergüenza, hombre, que os lleváis unos CDs maravillosos aquí del metal y del rock aquí, sí señora, a tope. Y las entradas también. Tenéis que contestar a la pregunta referente al concierto de...
No, para el concierto es para los discos. Para los discos.
¿Al concierto es para los discos?
Digo, lo de las preguntas mirando el cartel son los discos. Y las entradas son con la pregunta.
Bueno, pues venga, pues dilo tú, venga.
Tenéis que decir, para conseguir los discos, tenéis que decirnos qué tributos van a estar en el concierto de Zona Rock. Para llevaros cualquier disco. Miráis el cartel, que lo tenéis en Facebook o en Twitter, también lo tenéis, Facebook, Twitter y Instagram. Lo veis y los lleváis cualquiera de estos 4 discos. Y para la pregunta, ¿qué juego queremos ver en el E3? Es para las 2 entradas.
Vale, pues
así como era
aclarado
desde EA. Así es que, por nada, ha sido un placer y que no os dé vergüenza.
Que no os dé vergüenza. Así que nada, chicos, nos despedimos ya pues hasta dentro de un ratito con la siguiente de las conferencias, que ya será la de Ubisoft. Así que nada, hasta dentro de un rato y como siempre pues ha sido un placer y recordar que tenéis una cita con nosotros en UGN, Univer Game Next, con más eventos, con más contenido, con más E3 en el canal para todos vosotros. Así que no nos falléis, ser buenos y hasta pronto, cuidaros chicos.
Adiós.